Good evening. Good evening, and welcome to the regular meeting of the Council of the City of Long Beach, held Tuesday, May 3rd, 2022 at 7 p.m. We'll have a roll call. Councilmember Postor.
Here.
Councilmember Lester.
Here.
Councilmember Bendo.
Present.
Vice President Treston.
Here.
President McGinnis.
Present.
Let the record indicate the presence of City Manager Donna Gaden and Corporation Counsel, Assistant Corporation Counsel Chuck Geiger. We'll have a salute to the flag.
Chuck, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for attending tonight's meeting. We are going to start with comments from Councilwoman Posterly.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out tonight. We wanted to dedicate time tonight to express our deepest condolences to the LaPena family and all those in our community here who are mourning the loss of Laser. And this is obviously an unspeakable tragedy that, as a mother myself, I can't begin to put words to. In this memory, all are being asked to wear purple on Friday, which is the color used to highlight epilepsy awareness, which in memory of Laser. And please hold his family and each other tight. And tomorrow is never promised to any of us, so let's all be kind to one another. And thank you.
Thank you, Tina. As our community is hurting over this tragic loss, we want to communicate that help is available through, of course, the school district, Long Beach Reach, and other resources, which will be added to the city's website. We also want to take this opportunity to recognize that May is Mental Health Awareness Month. For 2022, the message is Together for Mental Health. Let's spread the word that it's okay to seek help. We all need it, and it's at one time or another, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. I myself have struggles over the past 15 years with mental health, so let's remember we're not alone, and let's help each other and keep an eye out for one another. With that, we'll move to the city manager's report.
Thank you very much. Is the Latino Association here? Is Helen here? Okay, well, we're going to start off my presentation with NV5. Brooke, do you want to come up and explain? Or Joe? I put you on the spot, Brooke. This is your project. Yeah, this is your project, though. Go ahead.
Thank you, everyone. Joe Fabrizio, Commissioner of Public Works. Yes, NV5 was a consultant that the city retained to work on, it's called the Transit-Oriented Development Project. I just want to thank Monique Powell, Director of Community Development, and also Patty Bourne, our Director of Economic Development, who really put a lot of hard work into this, and of course the city manager, who we've been working with on this project as well. And of course I have to thank Brooke Anderson. I have to embarrass her because she's my right arm in the Department of Public Works, and she really handles all this work for me. And she's going to be the lucky one that's administering this project out in the field. A very brief overview is it's basically to enhance pedestrian walkability around the vicinity of City Hall. They're going to basically do a very brief presentation, and then they're going to take questions in the OEM room right after the presentation. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to introduce Suzanne Boyle from NV5.
Okay, so the gist of the project was, as Joe said, to enhance the existing infrastructure around City Hall, the bus station, the Long Island Railroad Station, and the housing development in the north. Enhance the walkability, the safety, and the accessibility. Very strong emphasis on the accessibility for pedestrians in the area. So the task was to basically fill in the missing gaps, the missing links on the existing infrastructure. The project is funded by a $312,000 grant through HUD CDBG funds, and that's administered through Nassau County Office of Community Development. So, the next slide. We are proposing the following improvements. We're proposing, one step back. We actually vetted this through all different departments, the emergency response departments within the city. So we have a lot of, we made several revisions to the project, and what we're presenting tonight is the joint, the compromise of the project that everybody signed off. We are proposing decorative crosswalks at strategic locations. They are shown here in red. So we're proposing a decorative crosswalk on National Boulevard, crossing from the plaza to City Hall, on Center Street, also crossing from the plaza to City Hall, and then we are introducing a new crosswalk to create an accessible passage from the plaza and / City Hall to the bus station and the Long Island Railroad station, as shown across Center Street here. Everything is emphasized with signage and pavement markings, and we'll show that on the next slide. So the decorative crosswalk we're proposing is stamped concrete that appears to be like brick, so it's matching basically the current existing aesthetics within the city. And the signage for that mid-block crosswalk is a rapid flashing beacon, as you can see in the picture on the upper left. And we created a rendering to illustrate how that will look like. This is the crosswalk across Center Street from the plaza to the bus station. We're creating a continuous sidewalk from Park Avenue on the east side to the bus station, as shown on basically right in the middle of the picture, to create a safe pedestrian continuous walkway. And then that crosswalk will be kind of like the entrance, like the gateway into that centerpiece of around City Hall. And the rapid flashing beacons are shown here as the signage. This is a little bit closer up. You can see all the sidewalks are framed with planters and signage, and it will slow down vehicles and the buses for pedestrian safety. And then the last slide is a view from the plaza to the bus station, which illustrates the safe passageway for pedestrians. And then one other measurement we're proposing is to create a continuous sidewalk from City Hall on the west side of Center Street to the housing development, or vice versa. We're creating a safe connection from the housing development to all the amenities by connecting the islands in the parking lot north of City Hall with a continuous sidewalk, shown in gray on the west side of Center Street. And that's it in a nutshell.
Does the council have any questions?
Yeah, I do. There was, when the streets were redone, National and Edwards, the fire department had mentioned some concerns with the bump outs, about the fire trucks being able to clear the bump outs. Has this been run by the fire department to make sure there's no issues with the ambulances or the fire trucks?
I can answer that question. Yes, all of the major departments in the city met with NV5, and they walked all of the areas that they're talking about. So all of the department, this was a big team effort to bring this forward.
Any other questions? Okay.
So for the audience, we know that this agenda is a packed agenda, and if you have any questions, NV5 will be in the OEM room with their presentation to answer any questions that you may have. Our next presentation is the audit for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2021. Ina, would you like to step up and introduce the auditors? Also for the audience, we have been listening as it starts to get dark. If you look over on the desk where you have the paper where you can sign in for good and welfare, there is documents with the slides on there. They're on the table over there so that you can follow along with the presentation if you so choose.
One moment, Ina.
Donna,
please.
I just wanted to thank you. I noticed that the presentation was on the website, and you know, it really, it's a big step forward, and I wanted to thank you for that, because people got to see these presentations beforehand.
Ina, please.
Good evening. We have here with us representatives from Bonadia, who are auditors, their CPA firm, who audit our financial statements. They're here to present on the results of the audit for fiscal year that ended on June 30th, 2021. I, for one, am very happy that this process is almost over, so here you go.
Thank you. My name is Tim Doyle. I'm the partner on your engagement, and this is Heather Briggs, the principal. We are here to talk about the results of the audit. We're going to do this the old-fashioned way of saying next slide when it's up. So,
Can you just check your mic is on? Thank you.
Got it. Okay. So for starters, we're going to talk about the deliverables. What were we required to deliver to the city? We issued a required communication letter, which is a standard letter that your auditors are always required to issue at the completion of any audit. It talks about certain things that are required to be put in writing, such as new accounting policies that may have needed to be implemented, any difficulties, if any, in the audit, and certain things like that. So that's one of the deliverables we'll talk about. Also, your basic financials, which are your financial statements. We audit them. So what's ours in that packet is just the auditor's opinion on the financial statements, and Heather will go over some of those results. We also issue a management letter. It's basically a best practices item. If we see areas where you can improve or things that we see at other local municipalities, we offer those in the management letter. And then you're required to have two separate audits. One is a uniform guidance audit, which is your federal compliance audit. When you receive federal funds, you're required to have a separate audit on compliance with those requirements. And similar with your DOT or Department of Transportation state funds, you're required to have a compliance audit with that as well. Next slide. So in the required communications letter, again, some of the key things in there, you were required to implement a new standard this year, GASB 84, which is a fiduciary standard. It requires the reporting of fiduciary activities, which are normal in all governments. Some of the reporting changed there, and you were required to change some of the actual reports that get issued, as well as how things are defined in there. Similarly, significant estimates and disclosures. We as auditors note in that letter if there are any disclosures that are significant to you that are in those financial statements, and estimates. Some things are finite and we can audit to an actual amount. Some things have to be estimated, such as post-employment benefits, which an actuary estimates. So we note in that letter what those estimates are, how we come to them. And then lastly, just as a highlight of some of the items that would be in there, we did not note any or did not have any difficulties in performing the audit or any disagreements with management as to accounting, reporting, or auditing matters. So those are pretty standard, no big issues there. And I'll hand it over to...
All right, so I'll get into some of the nitty-gritty, the audit of financial statements. The first item is the independent auditor's opinion. You have an unmodified opinion. That's the highest opinion you can receive. What it really means is that, in our opinion, your financial statements are fairly presented. Also within that opinion, you'll see a paragraph for a prior period adjustment related to the reconciliation of capital projects, which we'll discuss later. Some various 20-year-old projects and some transfers that needed to be done. There's a second report we issue, the Government Auditing Standards Report. Within that, there was one material weakness noted related to that capital projects adjustment. No significant deficiencies and no issues with compliance and laws and regulations. Next slide. Some key financial highlights on the government-wide, and that is all information for the city in one statement. There was a $338 million deficit last year. That was reduced to $264 million this year. And that really is because your judgments and claims went down, reduced this year. Fund balance for all governmental funds on the fund level for each fund, they all increased $13.2 million. For the general fund by itself, your general operating fund, they increased $6.1 million. And part of that helped in increasing your unassigned fund balance, $3.9 million, from a deficit last year of 5.3. So now you're on the positive side. Next slide. Also within the financial statements, the prior period adjustment relating to the capital projects reconciliation, which Tim will talk about in a minute. And that really, in essence, reduced fund balance in the general fund, $2.3 million. Just to talk about the operating fund, it did have effects on the other funds, but that one, you want to talk about mostly. Revenues were over budget, approximately $3 million. That had a lot to do with the ARPA funds that the city got, the American Rescue Plan Act funds. Expenditures were under budget, approximately $1.5 million. Again, still in COVID, still having reduced things going on, but a lot of good budget management as well. Your other post-employment benefits, your health insurance for retirees, that increased approximately $2.4 million. Your net pension liability was reduced $30 million, and then the reduce of judgments and claims approximately 57, and most of that had to do with the Haberman settlement agreement process. Tim?
And I will just mention that large negative number in the net position that you saw that was $300-some million deficit. That is normal for governments in New York State. The biggest reason why is you have a very large liability for other post-employment benefits that New York State does not allow you to fund other than as you go. So you cannot have assets against that or accumulate and pay for that. You pay for it as you go. You have to record the full liability. So all throughout New York State, you will see all governments will have a negative or deficit. So it's a large amount, so I just want to punctuate that. In terms of the capital projects reconciliation, a couple of things. Heather had mentioned that we had this prior period entry. For a number of years, the city has had a finding or an item that was noted that there were some capital projects. Capital projects are long-term projects that you generally fund with long-term debt, bonds, things like that. They span over multiple years. Because a municipality may have many different projects, what happens is if the accounting isn't up to date on that constantly, you may find yourself at a point where you have a lot of old projects that maybe you're not sure where they stand. Have they been completed? Were they funded properly? Was there money that needed to be transferred to cover debt? So the city found itself over the last few years with some of those findings and worked with a consultant to clean that up, okay? This year, it was finally cleaned up in terms of going through each of those projects and determining where they stood. There were three main findings in the report that was issued that resulted in these prior period adjustments to your statements. And the main thing was, if you had a project that was completed, you look at if there's funds left over that you haven't spent, you have to look at two things. Is there debt still remaining that the taxpayers paid for? And the project is done and you have money left over. If there is, that money needs to go back to the debt service fund to fund future debt, okay? If there is no debt left over, you paid it or you didn't incur debt, the money goes back to the original fund. So those were the two big things. We also noted in certain instances the general fund, sewer, and water had funds that had not yet been transferred over and were owed to the capital projects. So there is a footnote in the financial statement that shows where these monies flow from each of the funds and which fund owes different funds amounts. And so there's a prior period adjustment for those amounts. The report didn't disclose any lost funds or any significant lost funds. It was mainly just an issue of the funds had not been transferred to the appropriate funds. They had to go back. Or in some instances, they had to go to the capital projects fund. So, in going through that, your consultant analyzed over 100 projects going back 20 years. What we've seen in recent years is there is very good accounting in those projects now, but this went back a number of years. So they analyzed over 100 projects. They determined what funding source the project was for. So where did the monies come from, debt and or funds, or local funds. Determine which fund project it was related to, and then recorded the amounts due from the general water, sewer, capital, and debt service funds. So those were the 5 funds that were affected. At the very end of your footnotes in the financial statements, it details out what those amounts were. And again, it's amounts between the funds. So there wasn't any missing funds or anything like that. It was just they needed to move back to the individual funds. So as mentioned, you've had that finding for a number of years now. You currently have the one material weakness that Heather mentioned that is because of this entry that had to be booked, but you've cleaned that up now. So going forward, we don't anticipate that you would have another material weakness on that. That seems to be resolved at this point. That said, I think that's all we have in terms of the results of the audit, but we're open to any questions.
Thank you, Tim and Heather, for that report. As part of the governance process, there's a subcommittee of the City Council called the Audit Committee. I serve on that committee along with Councilman Lester. Councilman Lester has agreed to give a report on our findings of the audit. Thank you.
Needless to say, I spent hours on this, and I still don't understand it completely. Part of the problem was that for years, we weren't putting the money into the right categories, and it wasn't that the money was being taken. It was like you had $100 and you had 5 different drawers, and the 20s were supposed to be in one drawer and they were in another drawer. And as I understand, we spent an enormous amount of money trying to straighten this out. We don't know how much we spent trying to straighten it out, but it is being straightened out. I personally am advocating for software that will never allow this to happen again. I don't understand why it would be so difficult to keep track of the expenditures on each project, but I think we're moving towards that. There's just, it's kind of difficult because you have common sense and you have government accounting, and the two have nothing to do with each other. And, as Ina explained to me, when you borrow money, you're actually getting a revenue, which makes no sense whatsoever. It's like saying, well, I took money out on my credit card, so I'm richer. You're not really richer, but that's the way the government looks at it. But overall, I really, poor Tim and Heather, I really, asked about 1 billion questions. And to be honest, I can't explain government accounting the way other people or people who live with it. But it does look like we're on the track of trying to get this straightened out. Now, I am very disappointed to find that for so many years, the council was aware of this, and it was just within the last 2 years that they started to do something about it and started to say, hey, let's get this money, in the proper place. But according to what I understand, the council was made aware of this material deficit of the money not being put in the proper place, and I don't know why nothing was done. But on the nice part about it is, as the old expression goes, no harm, no foul. No money was missing. It's just, we were paying interest on money that was sitting in places. I don't know how much interest. Nobody really knows that. But now, the other weird part about government is if you have the money and you have a bond and you have the money to pay it back, you can't pay it back. because you have to wait until it becomes due. And that's, I guess, the people who buy the bonds expect the money at a certain point over a period of time. But common sense tells me if you have money, you pay it back. But that's not the way it works in government world. The other part is we did have a great savings with pension liability. Not really a savings. We do have a savings this year. Everything went down, and you'll see that in the budget presentation as far as the retirement funds and stuff like that. And that was because in 2021, the stock market did really well. So since these are investments in the stock market, and as the stock market goes up and down, you have to come up with more money or you have to come up with less money. So we saved, the liability for the pension was reduced by $30 million. But now we're going to have them redo it, and anybody who has a 401k knows that it's not going to be a pretty year. It's not going to be as bad as 2020. That was right, Tim? 2020 was the really bad one? I just want to make sure. But, we're going to have more liability for that. The other thing was the Haberman judgment was carried as a $140 million judgment. When it was settled for $75 million, we had 57 less. Don't look at the numbers. It's not quite 57. It's just that's the way government accounting is. 57 less million that we owed, so we had less liability. So when they're talking about the liability having gone down or how much we owed, and we owe less, it's because they had put that judgment as, $140 million. If you look at it, though, just strictly liabilities, we still owe about $500 million, but that is because, as Heather explained, we owe a lot of money for, when people retire, they get to cash in their sick time, they get, certain payouts and stuff like that. All of that money has to be carried on the books, although we're not allowed to pay it off, we're not allowed to save for it, but that's considered a liability. And that's why when people say, well, we owe, $500 million, we don't. Well, we do owe it, but it's not something that has to be paid. It's something that'll have to be paid sometime in the future when people retire and stuff like that. But it's been quite educational. That's my report.
Thank you, Councilman Lester. Do we have any questions from the rest of the council? Any comments?
I have one. This was the third year you've done an audit for us. Could you just maybe briefly summarize the trend you have seen since you did your first audit of us and where we are now?
I don't have the actual I don't have the actual number of comments, but what we can blanketly say is that the number of material weaknesses, significant deficiencies, so these are internal control findings, has decreased significantly to where this year you have the one material weakness, no significant deficiencies. So we've absolutely seen progress similar to this capital project work that you guys did to clean that up over the last few years. So we're seeing the city making progress, chipping away at some of the findings and some of the issues. Similarly, we saw this year an increase in your general fund, which the State Office of Comptroller looks at when they look at your fiscal stability. We saw an increase in the overall fund balance there for the general fund, so certainly improvement there as well. So in the 3 years that we've been here, definitely each year you guys have chipped away at each of the findings, and financially we're moving forward in a positive manner.
So we're heading in the right direction?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I would be remiss if I did not comment on the extraordinary job of the Bonanno Group as our auditors, as a partner. But of course, first and foremost is Comptroller Edna Resnick for her outstanding work in this process, and also would like to thank the consultant that helped us unwind the capital projects work. Again, this audit is through June 30th of 2021, so this is comments on last year. And then Ina gets to start it all over again. So thank you very much. So it's the city manager's report.
It's under the city manager's report. At this time, I ask that we go out of order on the agenda and vote, or ask you to vote on item number 1, and that will allow the orders to go ahead and leave.
I still have to call the item.
Well,
Okay.
no, I'm asking, can they go out of order?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to call it before they vote on it.
Okay.
Okay. Ready to go? Okay, so we're going to skip over to the regular calendar, item number 1, resolution authorizing the city controller to close completed capital projects and to transfer the remaining unexpended funds.
Heather, did you want to, can you please comment on the item number 1, which is, or Ina, rather, I'm sorry.
Hello? Yeah. Good evening again. I will present this item number 1 on the agenda. What this is, it's a resolution that gives the authority to my office of the City Controller, to now actually operationalize and record all the results of the audit of the capital projects that were performed on all this 20 years of capital projects. So some projects have to be closed, funds have to be moved, and for that I need, in order to do that, I need to have the governing body approval of that. No capital projects are created without the governing body approval, nor can they be closed without it. Same goes for the transfers and everything else. So you can, just by looking at the pages and pages that support the body of the resolution, you could probably imagine the amount of projects and amount of work that went into it.
Okay, thank you, Ina. Council, I think we've been through this a few times. Any remaining questions? Councilman Lester?
Ina, just, when I look at this, it's incredibly confusing. When anybody else looks at it who doesn't live with this stuff, it's even more confusing. So a couple of questions. None of this is costing us a penny, correct? This is all transfers.
Yes, correct.
So there's no money being spent, no money being borrowed, nothing like that. This is just putting it in the proper drawers.
Just righting the wrongs of the past, yes.
Wow.
Thank you. Okay, any questions from the public at this time?
I have.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Bendo?
Ina, in the, sorry, in the chart that's in the resolution on page 3, for account V10510, an increase of revenues, it has the total amount as 323,935.26. I believe that should be 1,065,944.56.
You know what? You're absolutely right. Yeah, it should be the sum of the of those three.
I think it's just a transcription
Yeah.
error, but yeah, because it should match the line above it, the increased appropriations.
Yep. Okay, that is correct.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Bendo. Any questions from the public on this item? Okay, seeing none, we can. Yes, do you want to vote or you want to wait?
No.
We'll vote, please.
So item 1 is a resolution authorizing the city controller to close completed capital projects and to transfer the remaining unexpended funds. Introduce and move the adoption of this item.
I will.
Second,
I will.
voting, Councilmember Postoli,
Yes.
Councilmember Lester,
Yes.
Councilmember Bendo,
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President McGinnis.
Yes.
Okay.
Well done.
All right, thank you very much. Bona dia. So the final presentation we have for you tonight is the budget presentation, and that also is the comptroller, Nina Resnick.
Is this part of the public hearing?
No, it's part of my
City
report.
manager's report.
Oh, okay.
No.
What did you say, Nina?
The presentation? No.
You need one?
I do, yeah.
Oh, here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, here it is.
Oh, wow. Now
Nice
we've got a
copies
bunch.
too. Yeah, pass that back. Oh, you have another one? No. There you go. Okay.
Okay, so I guess here we are, starting the budget proceedings for fiscal 2023. In case you can't see well the screen, I have printed out copies of the slides here for you as well. If anyone needs any. No. Okay, so what's the budget? The budget is a plan. It's the plan of how much we are anticipating to spend in the next fiscal year and how much revenue we have to bring. And what are the guiding principles for every year budget is to provide high quality municipal services to keep our city safe and to keep it looking great and to maintain a prosperous, fiscally sustainable and economically viable city. What was the specific concern for this fiscal year budget was to do two things for us, is to move away from borrowing for operating expenses. Starting with 2015, Long Beach had borrowed for separation pay. So this is an operating expense that should have been funded through the regular revenue of the city, whatever the source of the revenue is, other than the debt. But the city kept on borrowing, and then come 2020 budget, before COVID started, we were talking about moving away from that practice. And then COVID, and then the impact of COVID was still felt for the 2022 budget. So finally, this year, we were able to cut the cord there and or rip the Band-Aid, however you want to present it. But just to put it into perspective, all this monies that were borrowed from 2015 through last year, they have to be paid back. So in 2023, you will see what the total debt service is. Of that number, $2 million pertains to the redemption of that debt. So we're paying down on the debt that we acquired due to borrowing for separation pay. If that was never the case, we wouldn't have to raise taxes, let's say, by $2 million. So this year budget has all separation pay funded by operating revenues. Another thing that was major focus for the city was to not deplete our newly established unassigned fund balance in the general fund. We made great strides in bringing it up to the level that we're not the most fiscally stressed city in the whole state. Our score went like from 88 to 45, and the big part of that score, how it's calculated by the Office of the State Comptroller, is based on how much money we have in unassigned fund balance. So it's basically, are we doing reasonable, non-aggressive budgeting that if something happens, we have some savings? Okay, so key points for the budget. The budget is balanced. Property tax revenue increase is proposed at 4.96%. For homestead, that's compared to 4.87% for fiscal year 21-22 budget. This represents about $219 increase per median assessed household compared to $206 in fiscal year 2021. What I want to emphasize is that for U.S. residents, when you receive your tax bills, not 100% of those taxes go to the city. From every dollar that, for 2021, that's the historical information, and that actually comes also from the Office of the State Comptroller. So for every dollar that you pay in taxes, 25 cents goes to the city, 18 cents goes to the county, and 57 goes to the school district. Okay, so from your total tax bill, the city is 25%. Other tax revenue, sales tax revenue remain on a strong recovery trajectory. Proposed operating departmental expenditures are approximately $2 million, or 2.14% higher than fiscal 2022. To put it into perspective, inflation for that same period was 4.7%. Next slide, please. So what this slide represents is it's revenue at a glance. It's basically on that very last row, you see the total revenues for adopted 2022 budget and proposed 2023 budget and the respective components. So you see that the biggest component of the revenue is the real property taxes. The property tax cap, I will address a couple of the slides after this. But also, what I would like to bring your attention to is that in 2022, you see that there was $3.2 million, that line, the third one from the bottom in a bond anticipation note, and you see zero for this year. That's what I'm talking about, borrowing for separation pay. So we build that totally into the revenue other than that. Next slide. Okay. So this is just a graphical representation of the previous slide. So you can visually see that majority of the 56% of city's revenue come from property taxes. The second largest portion of the pie is departmental income, which is 20%. Departmental income is income that we derive from the Ocean Beach Park revenue, from recreational activities, from youth and family services, and you see 10% we get as a state aid, and about 6% from non-property tax items. Next slide, please. This is a very high level of expense allocation per category. So about 51% of total expenses come from department-related activities, all the city's departments. We're talking about general fund here. Then the second most expensive category is about 24% that comes from employee benefits. And employee benefits, that's everything from pension plan contributions to the health benefits. And as you heard auditors say before, city does not only pay health benefits for its current employees, but when people retire, this health plan becomes their secondary insurance, we also pay for that, right? So from the allocation standpoint, I would say it's probably 27% of the total what city pays for the health insurance goes towards paying for the retirees, people that don't work here for the city anymore. Why am I saying that is because that becomes a challenge in budgeting because it's an expense that is not discretionary. That's something that we're set to pay no matter what. Next page. So here, it's a more detailed, granular explanation of how your tax dollars are spent. I'm just gonna ask Dave to go maybe from one slide to another, stay a minute on each one, so a couple of seconds, so you guys can look at how your tax dollars are spent. And altogether, it adds up to, if you can go back to the previous slide. So that's the employee benefits that I was talking about, the state retirement and the fire and police retirement system cost the city about $7 million a year. $12.5 million is for hospital and medical insurance. And our FICA, Social Security, is about $3.5 million. That's a little inflated number because city took advantage of the provisions of the CARES Act and we deferred the payment of the 2020 FICA taxes towards that. They allowed us to do it in 21 to pay it down in 22 and 23. So that's something that number will go down for the next fiscal year. Next slide. And we're paying about $12.9 million for the debt. That's what we're transferring to the debt service fund that operates as our treasurer for the payment of the debt. And about $4.4 million will go to the Risk Retention Fund. Risk Retention Fund is a fund that pays for all the workers' compensation, insurance, and claims from the time that the city was not insured, was self-insured for workers' compensation, as well as for the judgments and claims. Next slide. Okay, and that's just, that is just a graph of how your dollars are spent. You see that the biggest area here is employee benefits, and then that's 24%. General government support is 19%. Public safety, which is police and fire, represents 18% of our overall expenses. Next page. So this graph, it represents in blue, you have those, you have 2022 next to 2023 budget for each of the categories. And as you can see, pretty much the blue is the same as the gray. So you could see that there was no drastic increases or decreases in any which category of the spending for the city. Next page, please. Okay, so with the budget, always the question comes of the tax cap, right? So what's a tax cap? It's a real property tax levy limit. So for most part, the tax cap is the lesser of the inflation rate, or 2%. So it can never be more than 2%. If inflation is 4.87%, the cap is limited at 2%. The city may adopt a budget that requires a tax levy that exceeds 2%, but for that, they need a resolution. So it's also worthwhile to mention that even if the levy increases by 2% or whatever percent the levy increases it doesn't mean that your individual tax bill will increase by that same percentage, because there is a lot of factors that go into your individual taxes other than the tax cap. So how is it calculated? The tax rate is calculated by dividing the total levy by the total taxable assessed value. So what's inflation? Inflation is actually determined by the United States Department of Labor. It's a percentage, and it represents the change in the average of the national consumer price indexes. Another factor that goes into the calculation of the total tax levy is the tax-based gross factor. So the tax-based gross factor is based on real brick-and-mortar development. So the more development you have in the city, the greater your levy becomes. And it's not based on general increases of the economy or assessment values. That gross factor is determined by the New York State Department of Tax and Finance. For last fiscal year, that number was 1.0064%, and for this year, it's 1.0055%. So when total tax levy is calculated for the purposes of the tax cap, there are certain exclusions. These exclusions are pension contributions. When pension contributions at the state level, those percentages go up by more than 2%. The difference between what would have been a 2% contribution and what the actual contribution is can be an exclusion from the tax cap calculation. Another exclusion is the court orders. There is nothing for this year. Next year, we might try to, if we will have and will borrow for, by next year, I mean 2024, not 2023. But if we will have and we will borrow for the settlement of the judgment, for let's say, if prior year tax levy is $50 million, right? So 5% of prior tax levy is $2.5 million. And if our debt service will be $5 million, we can exclude the difference between $5 million that we will pay for the for the debt in connection with the settlement, and $2.5 million that represents the 5% of the property tax levy. There is no exclusion for the tax cap calculation this year. Next page, please. Okay, this is the formula. It basically summarizes everything that I already said. I included it, so if you guys want to check me out if I did the calculation correctly, it's on our website. Next slide, please. Tax cap override. So basically, we will need a 60% vote for the passage of the tax cap, and it's only good for this year. So if it passes the tax cap override, it's only for 1 year. So what that authorization means, that it allows the city to override the tax cap. It doesn't mean that the city will have to. So if for some miraculous reason we will get a grant of $10 million between now and the adoption of the budget, and we will not have to pierce the cap, it will not be pierced. And that concludes my presentation on the budget. The next slide, please. Questions?
All right. For all of you sitting in the audience that are saying, I have no clue of what she's talking about when it comes to the tax cap. It was just a presentation to let you know how it's calculated, so no one would think that we are just making up numbers. I encourage you to call the office, call my office, and you can come in and we can sit down and go over how the calculations are done so that you can better understand. But the purpose of this was definitely to let you know basically how we come up with what we need for the budget. So at that point, that's the end of my manager's report.
Okay. Dave, can we move on to the public hearings?
Ooh. Okay, so
I'll go.
okay, our first public hearing is for the purpose of giving citizens an adequate opportunity to publicly present their views on the general summary of the proposed budget for the year July 1st, 2020, for the year July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023.
Thank you, Dave. I'm just going to comment that according to the city charter, the city manager is required to submit the budget to the council no later than April 10th. That happened this year on April 10th. From there, they have 10 days to submit the budget to the city clerk, who posts it and has it available for the public. So that means that this council has had the budget for over 3 weeks to review. We met in twos with Donna and Ina on April 12th and April 13th to start to ask questions. Since then, we've had the opportunity pretty much 24/7 to ask Donna and Ina any questions we wanted. As of last Monday, I've also posted a grid that the council uses in Excel to ask questions of the council, of Donna, budget questions. I think, Donna, you have almost 36 questions on there that you and Ina have been answering. So the reason I've mentioned all this is to let you know that tonight this is a public hearing. So we want to hear from the public. At this point, are there any questions from the public?
We also, Eileen, come on up, Eileen. We also want everyone to know that the questions that are asked, we will post them on the website so that individuals who still had questions about the budget or just had was not able to be here or not able to see it on YouTube, that they will have the answers there.
Thank you.
Dave, we gotta get the mic set up.
Thank you. Is it on? Is it?
Oh, yeah. Somebody took the mic stand.
Okay.
Eileen Hessian, hi.
Hi, Ms. Hessian.
This is probably more of a comment. Raises, I think an average raise is 3%, and for years many people haven't gotten any. And as I looked at the budget, which was quite a lot to look at, I saw many 10% raises. And I just find it very disappointing when we really have to, tighten the belt or whatever metaphor you want to use. 10% when our people, for the most part, have very good benefits here, medical, etc. 10% is just a very big budget. That's my comment. I mean, raise.
Okay, so what so there are contractual budgets and contractual raises. And some of them, they have increased by step. Not only they may have increased by step, they may have had 1%, 2%, 3% in there. Some may have had longevity. As far as the exempt staff, there are a few exempt staffs that received adjustments. But overall, the budgets, the raises that you see were contractual.
Fix the contracts.
Thank you, Ms. Hession. Are there any other questions from the public? Budget questions? Okay.
Karen?
Mr. Lester?
Yes. Hold on a second. Let me get this one. All right. So when will the council, in front of the public, be able to ask the questions on the budget?
We have a working meeting next Tuesday for that.
We have a working meeting next Tuesday, and then we
Okay.
have one more hearing, I believe, at the next, on the 17th.
Okay.
And so what we've asked is that during the working session, the council ask all of the budget questions at that time, so that on the 17th, we're listening to the public so we can move forward.
Right.
Yes.
I just, asking the public to ask questions now without any guidance from the council is not the usual way we do things, but
Well,
that's all right. We'll do it on the 17th.
The usual way has always been that the council come and then they ask questions while they're sitting at the dais. What
Right.
we've done for last year and this year, we have more working meetings where we sit down as a group in twos with Ina and I and talk about the budget and your concerns. There's also the grid that you put the questions in the grid, and we're looking to see, because it's a working live document, but if anybody wanted to foil it to see the type of questions that were asked, questions and answers, they will be able to see it. That way, if a council member has a question, they drop that question into the grid, we answer it, and then all council members can see it. The purpose of doing that is to make sure that when we come to the dais, that we leave time open for the public, and that we work better as a group of answering all of the questions that is regarding to the public.
I know, Donna. When we discussed this at the last working meeting, and we talked about opening that up to the public, and it still has not been opened up to the public.
Because it's a live document. So what they have to figure out is how you open up a live document. What we know that is not a violation of the Open Meetings Act. In order to put it on the website, we have to figure out, because it's a live document, and if anybody wants to know what I mean by a live document, I can have the form open, and you can, Councilmember Lester, you can have the form open. I can type in the form, and you can type in the form. We have to figure out, IT is trying to figure out how you put it on the website, but the public can't type into the form.
It says a read-only document.
They're working on that.
Okay, because that's the way, I would like to reserve the comments until the public can see it. And that's why I have not put anything on that, because we talked about opening it up to the public. And I'm still waiting for that. But
Well, that's what
we do
public
have
hearings
to.
are for. And
Well-
so that's what public hearings are for, is to
Well,
open it
that's-
up to the public.
I know,
So
but
we
that's-
can put the document up there, but the purpose of the meetings with the council is that the council can ask all the questions they have of the staff, and that the staff can respond and, or do any research. And as we answer, just as I stated earlier tonight, any question that was asked tonight, we will put it up on the website for anyone that was not at the meeting or have not viewed the meeting. However, the working document, they are trying to figure out how we put it on the website. So I will have probably an answer by Thursday on steps. We may have to put it on the website on one day, and then after we answer, take it down, put it on another day. But in the meantime, we've been answering the questions.
Okay. I was just going to say, is there a way, like in between now and then, to get at least the questions we asked in the grid? I know it wouldn't be representative of the actual thing, but as a solution.
I know I asked at least 24 questions that you answered, so if there's some way to post it, that would be great. Legislator Ford?
Denise Ford, Long Beach. All right, so I know you have the working sessions in regard to the, because I'm a little confused now. Now I'm completely flummoxed about the whole thing. So you have a working session, and we can watch as the audience, we can watch the working session online. But are you asking questions during the working session, or do you have to write your questions during the working session?
No. So during the working session, you can ask questions.
Right.
But in between now and the working session, you still can ask questions.
Okay.
So when we come to the working session, somebody may say, oh, I forgot about this question. What about this, this, and this? And then we can respond, or we can say we have the answer to it, or we'll have to look into it. Yeah, so you can ask questions all the way up.
Right.
You know, it's just that the working session is for everybody to sit down and continue to work. Yeah.
And I appreciate your concern about the residents being able to have more time at a city council meetings, especially during budget. But, you know, the budget time is something that a lot of residents do take seriously because
Absolutely.
it is impacting our quality of life and the taxes. So I'm a little dismayed, though, because but I think maybe I misunderstood. So at the next public hearing, if I put together my questions and we generate comments or questions to you at the next hearing, then the city council does have the right to ask questions from the dais, right? They will not
Yes.
be stifled. So if Roy has questions that he didn't feel that was being answered, then if somebody says something, he has the right then at the next city council to ask a question in regard to the budget.
Wait,
Now I'm
Yes.
confused.
I think there's a
Yeah.
misconception here. There are two public hearings for the budget. Tonight's
Right.
the first one.
Yeah.
So tonight, the public
May
can come up
17th
here
is the second, yeah.
and ask us questions.
Right.
So Roy, myself, when we were sitting on that side, we used to
Right.
come up and ask all kinds
All
of
the time,
questions
yeah.
about this and the others.
We didn't get answers, though.
Well, that's a different story. So tonight is the opportunity for the public. We have the opportunity as a council. We keep a running written list of questions that we generate, and the staff kinds of answers them as we go, with the idea that this tonight is supposed to be about the public giving us their input and giving us their feedback on the budget. We're doing that already with the staff. We've been doing that since April 10th when we got the budget. So we had and continue to have our opportunity.
24/7.
What this is now is this is your opportunity to ask questions and make comments about the budget. What next Tuesday is then is if we get any substantive comments tonight that we have to digest, we'll be able to discuss them together next Tuesday at the working meeting, ask additional questions and things like that, bounce ideas off each other for things.
Right.
And then the next city council meeting will be another public hearing for the public to give comment and ask questions on the budget.
And I appreciate all this, but I think that the vibrancy of open government allows the fact that the public who takes time to come to a city council meeting can also listen to a discourse amongst the city council members and those that work for the city, so that it's in a real-time discussion. I mean, I understand
Right, and that's
you're
what- that's what
answering
next-
a lot of
that's
questions.
what next Tuesday's
But I
for.
just don't want to have, for me, I work in government. I have the public, they ask us questions, and while we will work at things behind closed doors or in other meetings, we also keep it open so that it may take a long time. We may have hearings that can go on for hours, especially regarding budgets, but a lot of times it does offer the public an opportunity to be able to come up, make comments, and ask questions, and then hear personally from everybody on the dais to see, what questions they may have in real time. That's all I'm saying.
Right, and that's why we're talking about-
I'm hoping that we're not going to try to stifle the city council members in regard to asking
No,
questions
that's why
on the
we're
dais
talking about.
for the benefit of the public.
That's why we're
all I'm
talking about
asking.
this running written list
Yeah.
we keep.
Right.
We're talking about posting that, so
Right.
everybody can see those questions and answers.
But you will still be able to ask a
Oh, of
question in
course.
2 weeks.
Of
Okay?
course.
Right. Okay.
Of
No,
course,
I just
but
wanted-
what
I
t-
misunderstood.
what
I
tonight
thought
is-
it was just you work and you do your questions you know, in the work session and online, but the only people who can ask questions in the budget hearings would be the public. But I'm mistaken, and I thank you very much.
Right, what we're trying
Okay.
to do is give the public the time to make
Right.
their comments and ask their
No, I
questions.
understand.
That's why
But I
it's a-
also like to hear, like, if you have questions, I'd like to hear
Because
what you're going to say. Yeah.
to your point, the open meetings law doesn't allow us to have behind the door,
Right,
closed
but
door
you do the work
meetings.
sessions, that's what I meant, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So we have scheduled work sessions to
I
do
watched
that
them,
kind of
yeah.
stuff.
But
Also, when you see the grid, you will see which council member asked the question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I thank you very much. No, I
Did-
appreciate that.
Denise, the problem I have is that on the next work session, you people won't be allowed to ask any questions.
Right, because that's where it's disjointed.
Right, right.
So I can't,
you're-
yeah.
You will not be able to ask any questions, so whatever input you hear from us, you're going to have
Yeah.
one opportunity at that last time to ask questions. Now, the problem I have with the grid is the five of us are on the grid, and we brought it up at the work session. To me, that's a violation of the open meetings law, where, you know, we're not meeting, but we're communicating for the purpose of government. And that's why we talked about opening it up. But it hasn't been opened up yet, you know, and I'm sure that we can figure out a way that the public cannot change it. You know, it's a
Yeah.
read-only, and that can probably be done, you know, I could probably ask my son how to do it, and he'll figure it out. But,
Don't ask
that,
me.
yeah, but that's,
I couldn't.
that
yeah.
should be the way it's done, and at that point, it is, you know, in my book, and only in my book, it's not a violation of the open meetings law, and we're not doing government behind closed doors.
Right, well, you're doing, because we can watch the work sessions.
The open meetings law
Yeah.
does not allow us to deliberate, to come up with a decision behind closed doors. The open meetings law says nothing about us asking questions, providing questions to the staff for them to answer. In fact, that's our job. Our job is to oversee the finances of the city, which means we ask staff questions. That's our job.
But
The open
John, in all fairness to Roy, and I understand what you're saying, I'm not trying to create a problem. I was just trying to, because I was a little confused. But I think that maybe what Roy is trying to do is like with the work session, by opening it up to the public, which can be cumbersome because we're at a remote location, that I think for me, the importance is, yes, it is sometimes where you could be at meetings and you could be at meetings for a million hours, okay? And we do want to hear from the public. But I think that what it is that I think you still have to allow a healthy dialogue with, you know, so the public are here asking questions and personally watching, since we're in person. You know, it does on all levels of government. Nobody, you know, like everybody asks questions on the floor. So that's what I'm saying. So in 2 weeks, I just want to confirm that if I ask a question on the budget, you can also ask a question on the budget.
Sure.
Okay, that's all I want to know. But I understand. It might be with the, with having, you could figure that out with the work study, whether or not, you know, but I just misunderstood it, and I was a little confused.
So as I stated before, earlier, that we are going to try to have the grid online. The IT is working on it. Also, the grid is not a violation of the open meetings.
Oh, I'm not.
No, he said he believes
Yeah.
that it's a violation, and it is not. It's because no decisions are being made on that grid. You're asking a question, no different than we sending out an email asking, can you,
Thank you, I'm
everybody
finished.
meet? So
Yeah.
no one's making a decision. Someone's asking a question, and the question is being answered. No decisions are made.
Donna.
So yes, it will, so we will, in fact, we're working on it again to put the grid out there so that everybody can see which council members are asking questions.
But maybe what you could do is allow maybe residents, if they want to send in a question, to be.
Oh, without a
maybe
doubt,
they
you
could
know.
do that too.
Yeah,
Oh, they
that's
can
a
do
great
that.
point. I actually got some questions today from a resident, and then sent them to Donna, and the resident got a phone call back.
That's all.
So I think
No,
the idea is
I was
that.
just concerned if there was any stifling.
Yeah,
in there.
you
No,
know,
not at all.
we
Not
want the
at all.
public to feel comfortable and not intimidated to be here and not have to wait till 11 o'clock to talk. So
But they
again,
wait.
this is this.
People do wait.
Some don't because they have to get back to their kids or something. So we don't want people to feel intimidated when they come here to actually talk, to engage in public discourse. So we're doing everything we can to make sure that they feel comfortable, because this is about the residents, and it's so important that they have the opportunity to speak.
I agree.
Thank you.
But I think we
Thank you.
also like to hear our elected officials speak
Thank
publicly,
you.
too. Right, thank you.
Are there any questions? Mr. Kirkland?
Jim Kirkland, Long Beach. I don't really have a question, I just had a request. Enid puts together a wonderful presentation, and I follow it as best I can. But I think the one thing we have the most difficulty with are the charts. So if you could just make a handout of charts, as she's speaking, we can at
Jim,
least see what's on the...
Jim, Ina already said
Right
that you
there.
had one available for you.
I didn't have this one.
There you go.
Okay, thank you.
If you want it in color, I can email it to you.
It is on the website.
Okay.
And it's also on the website.
Are there more questions from the public? Mr. Gessler?
Good evening, Jay Gussler. Not really a question, but just a comment really on the process that you guys are debating back and forth here. In my experience, it's the first time you guys are using this particular process.
Louder.
Wow, I'm sorry, I have hearing aids. It sounds really loud to me.
Get closer
Get
to the
closer
mic.
to the mic.
Not a question about the budget itself. I'm not going to pretend to be knowledgeable of such a complex document, but rather the process that you guys are, in my impression, using the first time here in this particular process. It would appear that Council Member Lester has some questions about the propriety of it and whether or not it complies with the open meetings law. Is it not possible for the council to seek out an advisory opinion from the Committee on Open Government as to whether or not this particular process passes open government muster?
It is my understanding, and I will check for sure tomorrow, that our Corporation Council did in fact check with New York, with open government, and that's, no decisions are being made. And so that's why we left the grid as it is, and trying to figure out how we can get it on the website. And like I said before, it might be that we have to continuing put it on the website as we answer questions, but it was not a violation of open meetings because no decisions were being made.
I understand.
And
It would
Jay-
just be a good idea going forward to maybe get a written advisory opinion affirming that.
Of
Miss-
course.
This was...
Mr. Lester?
This was,
Mr. Lester? Go ahead.
yes. Thank you, Karen. This was brought up at the last work session, and Mr. Barrios agreed that it could be a violation of the open meetings law. Now, if he has gotten an opinion, he certainly didn't share it with me. But the idea that you can meet, and as long as you don't make a decision, not violate the open meetings law, is something I've never heard about. It's the meeting and discussing. That is the thing that the open meetings law addresses. It's not just making a decision. And
Well,
you know that.
Again,
I mean, you've been
I'm
around
not an
long
expert on the
enough.
open meetings law, but I think
Right.
you guys certainly should get some guidance on this so to be sure you're on sound footing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gessler. Mr. Lester, thank you for your great points. And Donna will follow up, City Manager will follow up and get back to all of us. Any more questions regarding the budget from the public? Okay, well, so we will close.
No, leave it open.
Sorry. We will leave it open.
Yeah, the public hearing will continue at the next council meeting on the 17th.
And meanwhile, again, send us your questions and fill in the grid.
Okay. Our second public hearing is for a bond ordinance authorizing financing of the construction and reconstruction of improvements to the city's wastewater treatment plant, appropriating $1,600,000 for such purpose and authorizing the issuance of up to $1,600,000 bonds to finance said appropriation. This goes with item number 2 on the agenda, and I believe there's an amendment for this item.
I would like to make an amendment, please. I would like it to go from $1,600,000 to $2 million.
Do I have a second?
All right, I'll second it, but we need somebody to come up and explain why this is being proposed.
And here's your why.
Oh, is that okay?
Hit the switch on it.
From the bottom.
Hello, is that better? Okay, great. Good evening, everyone. Joe Fabrizio, Commissioner of Public Works. On April 17th and April 18th, an emergency situation developed at the wastewater treatment plant. The 60,000-pound cover on the secondary digester, which is a building at the plant that's used for treatment, basically tilted on or listed at a 45-degree angle, rendering the building basically non-operational or not operational for its intended use. So in response, I solicited 2 bids. Well, actually, in response, the first thing we had to do was authorize emergency hauling from what's called the primary digester. So basically right now we're paying $2,500 per 7,000-gallon tanker. We're doing 2 of those per day, 5 days a week. So we're basically spending $25,000 a week on hauling, I'm going to call it undigested sludge to put it nicely. Okay. So in the interim, what we did is we didn't want to keep doing that forever, so we put out a bid that was due last Thursday to basically remove the cover, take all the sludge out of the secondary digester and clean it. Those bids came in on Thursday, and the bid was $1,049,000. On a parallel path, we also put out a separate bid for hauling what's called undigested sludge. So the thing that we're doing now on an emergency basis, which is $2,500 per tanker, we put out a bid because we didn't want to keep doing that on an emergency basis. So we got the bids in. The low bid, the sole bid, was Tully Environmental at $2,400 per 7,000-gallon tanker. So it was a very small savings, but it's a savings nonetheless. So what I'm trying to do is basically give you the explanation for why we're have to borrow $2 million to address the situation. So we have the $1,049,000 for the removal of the cover, cleaning of the tank, and draining of the tank. We have $600,000 for hauling. That's what the total of the bid was. And plus, we have 2 other items on tonight. One is to amend our contract with CDM Smith for to add $30,000 to it to assist me in responding to the DEC. That's the Department of Environmental Conservation, because we already got a summons for this. And just so you know as well, there's absolutely no impact on the effluent. There's contamination going to Reynolds Channel. There's no issue with anything that's going into the bay, just so you're aware of that. So that's basically what this $2 million is for, is to get us through this emergency situation at the plant. You have any questions?
Look, I just want to take a second to explain something to the public. I'm going to do a little translating from Public Works Commissioner to common English. The digester in the plant is where, for lack of a better term, the results of your high-fiber diet wind up in this tank.
Bring it nicely.
And bacteria basically digest it, eat it, and reduce it down.
Like the commercial.
But it has to be done in an oxygen-free environment. You can't have any air in there. So there's an airtight cover on the tank. That cover has collapsed and is tilted at a 45-degree angle. So the digester no longer functions. So we're spending $25,000 a week right now to haul raw sewage from here to New Jersey to be processed. So what this is to get the necessary work done to try to stop this. So I was just trying to explain
I appreciate
why
that
we have
assistance.
to do this.
Thank you.
Okay.
And Mr. Lester?
Yes. Just to add on to what John's saying, it's actually the sludge. And the sludge is, if it's not dried out by the, and the bacteria work on it, it's wet. And it's, right now we're hauling, and Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, please. We're hauling the sludge. We have to do that regardless. But it's dry, so it's much, much cheaper. Is that?
Actually, no. What we're hauling is it's the opposite. It's actually liquid because we can't press it. That's what the purpose of the secondary digester is. The secondary digester actually is a spot where a location in the facility where the sludge actually settles out and you get the solids.
And it what?
You get solids.
Yeah.
It's a nice way to put it. From the primary digester, and I'm sure Tyrone from our chief plant operator is here. Basically, it's a more liquid content that comes out of there, so that's what we're trucking. So we're basically right now we're not able to use this second process or the secondary digester to process sludge like it's supposed to.
Okay, so my question though is, right now the 1,149,000 is to remove the top and clean it, and clean the digester.
It's going to remove the cover,
Yes.
drain the tank, clean the tank.
Yes.
That's it. Then we're going to evaluate what the next step is. There's some options out there. One is to operate with no cover on the tank, which I've already discussed with the Department of Environmental Conservation. They said they're against us doing that. It's not, by law, it's not required. It's required. We have to have a cover on it. But we're going to investigate another type of top. Instead of a solid cover, they have fabric covers. So we really can't do anything, though, until we have it drained, the cover's removed, and it's cleaned. So we can't really get to that next step until this first step is done. The only good news is that we have $750,000 in the capital budget that was authorized, not borrowed. What the intent of that was to actually replace the cover. That was put in the budget like 2 or 3 years ago. This was just for the cover replacement.
So if we remove the cover, we have the money to replace the cover?
Some of it.
Potentially. I don't know how much. It depends on what type of cover we use.
We haven't borrowed it yet, but we...
One of the problems with this whole thing is anything we spend, quite honestly, since we're going to be moving forward, and you're going to be hearing a lot about this in the coming weeks, the Long Beach consolidation project, where we're going to be partnering with the county to basically convert that whole plant to a pump station,
Right.
and then build a 19,000 linear foot force main to transmit flow to Bay Park. And every facility there is going to be abandoned. It's going to be knocked down,
But we're
decommissioned.
talking 2 or 3 years.
We have to get by 3 years, correct?
Right. And right now, we are putting money aside for 6 months of transporting.
It's only for 6 months, that's correct.
And within that period, you think it's realistic that we can have the digester working again?
I don't know at this time. We're also exploring some other cheaper options. Thanks to Legislator Ford, I had a very good conversation today with the Deputy Commissioner of Public Works, and they basically said, initially I reached out to them to see if they could take the waste at Bay Park, because obviously that's a lot shorter distance. Apparently they were unable to, but they've since talked internally, and there may be a way that we can actually take the sludge there instead of going to New Jersey. And the great thing about that is they only charge us 10 cents a gallon, from what I'm hearing, and which is $700 per 7,000 gallon tanker. So it would be a significant savings if we could somehow work that out. The way I left off with them today was that we would move forward with the 6-month contract. It has a 6-month option. In the interim, we would talk to them. Hopefully over the next 6 months, we'll be able to work out on an intermunicipal agreement where we could take the sludge to them. But, so I was very encouraged today after I spoke with them today. We had a really good conversation. So that is a possibility.
So if we were able to do that, could we theoretically do that until we actually go online with the county?
Say that, can you repeat that?
If we can work something out with Bay Park, could we theoretically do that until we went online with the county in 2 or 3 years?
Ideally, absolutely. I mean, that's what I would like to see.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of moving parts. You have to get approval from the Department of Environmental Conservation.
If we could do that, that would mean we would not have to put on a new top. We would still have to...
We could, that'll be one of the options we explore. But one of the reasons, and it's one of the resolutions tonight, is we're amending the contract with CDM Smith. And they're going to assist me with responding to this. is that we got a violation already from the Department of Environmental Conservation. We have to prepare what's called a corrective action plan
Yep.
/ engineering report that has to be submitted to them by the end of the month regarding what the city's intent is long term. So what we will do in that report, it's going to list these options. What type of cover to put on? Do we have to put a cover? If we do put a cover, can it be a fabric cover or a steel cover? If we're not going to use that chamber, can we continue hauling for the next 3 years to Bay Park? So it will contain, that's one of the reasons we're hiring CDM Smith, or amending their contract, I should say, is so we can actually engage them to respond on behalf of the city.
Joe,
Thank you.
do we have to pay any fines because of the violation?
In the letter that they send, they basically say if we don't respond with a corrective action plan by the end of the month, you could be subject to fines of up to $37,000 per day.
$37,000 per day?
Per day, but we're not going to be, well, we're going to respond, so we're not
Right.
going to be in that situation.
And then do we have any manpower increase in cost because of this process?
Well, we have the increase in cost, like right now, we're hauling on an emergency basis, so we're spending $25,000 a week, for the
In
hauling
our
to-
operating budget?
Actually, not yet, not in the operating budget, no. Unless there might be some small amount of overtime with personnel, but most of it's going to come from capital. And there's a reason for that too. I mean, again, we're going to get into this at a later date, but the reason we want to use capital money is because what's going to end up happening is that capital money that we're going to bond for is going to be put into the debt service, and then as part of the agreement we worked out with the county, when we turn over the facility in 3 years to the county, we're going to keep taking the revenues until all debt service is paid off. So in other words, when we turn the keys over to the city for the water treatment plant, the wastewater treatment plant, for 2 more years, say they're operating it, but we still have debt service, they're going to let us keep the revenue to pay down the debt service.
Okay.
So it's actually, it's a great agreement that we worked out with the county. And you're going to be hearing a little more about that, and probably at the next meeting when we authorize. Well, tonight is the publication of the bond for the $123 million. But next week is going to be a hearing on that. That's a whole nother great project that we're working on.
Can you, Joe, just one more time, can you explain, because I may have missed it, but I think, it would be helpful, to the increase from $1,600,000 for the extra $400,000 to $2 million?
The $1,600,000 was simply my estimate when it happened.
Okay.
That was April 18th or 19th, without going out to bid, without having any real concrete numbers. I had estimated that number. So now we actually have real numbers. We have real numbers because, like you'll see in the resolutions that are coming up after this, we went out to bid. We received a bid of $1 million, I think it was $49,000 for the removal of the cover, cleaning of the tank, emptying the tank. We received a bid for hauling for 6 months for $624,000, I believe. We're amending the contract with CDM Smith, which is $30,000. So if you add them all up, and then we already spent about $50,000 on the emergency hauling. So if you add them all up, I have it in my paperwork here, but we're at about $1.7 million right now. So we're over my original estimate when we wrote this bond ordinance. We're over what I originally projected. So Chuck and I were working today to find out how you actually amend and basically what you have to do is amend it on the floor, upping it from 1.6 to 2. So there's a little bit of a safety net in there, which would cover additional hauling, essentially. I know it's a little confusing and there's a lot of moving parts. But you'll see the agenda items that are going to be voted on next.
Yeah.
And that's where we're coming up with
So is
a
this,
higher number.
is this another cautionary tale of not investing in your capital infrastructure?
You
in
know
a
what?
timely manner?
Not really. In this case, it's a little different because in 2019 we hired CDM Smith to replace this cover,
Right.
to design the replacement cover. So we were being proactive, but what happened is the consolidation project started to move forward. So we went to the Department of Environmental Conservation and we said, listen, why are you making us do this work when that facility is going to be closed in 3 years? We're wasting $750,000 or $1 million or whatever it's going to cost. So, and they actually, through a lot of hard work, we were able to get them to acquiesce, and we didn't have to do that work. Unfortunately, and ironically, when I spoke to the DEC, the first thing they said to me was, they said, they were kind of saying, look now what happened because we didn't replace it. I said, we didn't have a crystal ball. We were trying to save money.
Yeah.
That was the goal. And unfortunately, in this case, it didn't work.
Any questions?
If anybody needs any high-quality fertilizer, Joe can give it to you cheap.
Yes. Yes, I'm sure I've inundated you with many, many emails about, let's just say, undigested sludge.
Do we have any questions from the public on this item?
We're still in the
Wait, we
middle
have
of
to
voting.
do
sorry?
We're still
I'm
in the
just
middle of
amended
voting
it.
on the,
On the amendment. Ooh.
Okay, vote on the amendment. Councilmember Postoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember Bendo.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President McGinnis.
Yes. Okay. Are there any questions from the public on this item?
I have no questions, but I just want to make it, I would not normally raise a bond for $2 million, but this is an emergency, and it needs to be done. Thank you, Joe.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay. So I can close the hearing on this item.
Unless anyone has a comment from the public. No?
Already.
And eat less fiber for now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Try not to flush.
Okay, on to the regular calendar. Item 1 has been called and voted for. Item 2, bond ordinance, we've heard a hearing on this item already. Item 3 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to amend the existing agreement with CDM Smith for support services related to the emergency secondary digester cover removal, sludge removal, and tank cleaning at the water pollution control plant, as well as sludge hauling services.
I had a sort of a lengthy narrative. I'm going to try to shorten it a little bit. The original amount of their contract was actually adopted on August 20th, 2019. It was to prepare plan specifications and contract documents for replacement of that digester cover. It was $96,760. That's what the agreement was for. I'm engaging them now for support services. They gave me a proposal for $30,000. They're basically going to be assisting me with responding to the DEC, preparing the requisite engineering report, preparing the corrective action plan. They've actually assisted me already with putting the bid documents together for the 2 bids that were due last week for the sludge hauling and for the removal of the cover. And they're also going to be providing intermittent oversight on the city's behalf. They're also going to be reviewing the rigging plans that are required for the crane, as far as the method and means of construction for removal of the cover, and also reviewing all safety and health and safety plans for the project. Again, this is pretty technical nature. It's a very unique situation. So we're amending their agreement to basically assist our department in dealing with this emergency situation.
Okay. Any questions from the council?
The original contract from 2019, is most of the cost of this amendment basically coming from the corrective action report?
I think about $15,000 is for that portion,
Okay.
and about $15,000 is for reviewing health and safety plans, rigging plans, coordinating with the contractor that we're going to award this to, which is Thomas Novelli Contracting. I would say it's about half and half.
The reason I'm asking is the original contract included construction administration.
Yes, just so you know, as part of that $96,000, there's still $30,000 left in there.
Okay.
I'm treating it as a separate issue because we are most likely going to actually authorize them to continue with the design of either a fabric cover or a solid cover. So there is money left in that agreement.
Okay.
I just wanted me to be clear on that. There's about $30,000 out of that 96 still in there. But this is solely to address this emergency situation.
Okay.
Okay. Any more questions from the council? Any questions from the public? Okay.
Item 4 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract for the hauling and disposal of undigested sludge from the city's wastewater treatment plant.
Yes, this is a resolution authorizing the city managers to enter an agreement with Tully Environmental. They were the sole bidder, sole responder to our request for a bid to haul undigested sludge for a period of 6 months, which is basically 260 tankers. It's 2 per day, 10 per week, and it comes out to 260 tankers at 7,000 $2,400 per tanker. So therefore, it's $624,000. It's a 6-month contract with a 6-month option. I actually tried to reach out to them today to see what their costs would be, because I just found this out yesterday, if they were going to go to Bay Park, like how much the hauling would be. I'm sure it's going to be a lot less. But I wasn't able to get that number, unfortunately. But basically, this is for a 6-month period. I actually, when I initially put this together, it was for 1 year, and then I changed it to 6 months. I thought the 1 year was too long. So I did 6 months with a 6-month option.
Any questions from the council?
Yes. Joe, I worry, of course, that this is a contract and we would be bound to, pay that amount for 6 months. So
There's wording in the contract that it generally says we don't guarantee this many tankers. We don't guarantee 260, so to speak. It could be more or less. That's the wording in the contract.
All right, well, I just don't want to be in a position where they...
Yeah, and that's the reason, exactly what you said is the reason I reduced it from 1 year to a 6-month contract.
I wouldn't even...
Because I know for at a minimum, just the contract for the demolition is a 2-month contract. It's a 60-day contract. So at a minimum, and he's probably not going to sign a contract for another week or so, they're going to have to do it for at least 3 months without even thinking about it. We're going to use that whole 6 months. I'm
You don't think
confident.
Bay Park, there's any chance Bay Park might accept it before that?
Based on my conversation today, and I had, again, the Deputy Commissioner of Public Works in my office today, there's a lot of little things they have to iron out internally. One, we would probably have to have some sort of IMA with the county to accept the material. They're trying to iron out internally because they have an agreement with Suez. Suez operates the plant on their behalf.
Yeah.
So they have to negotiate with Suez to make sure it's acceptable. So it's whole nother layer of bureaucracy, so to speak. So I had a really good meeting with them today. I was very excited about it. So I think long term, it's probably going to be a solution. The Department of Environmental Conservation wants us to work together. We're partners with them on this 2 or 3 year project that's going to start, hopefully shortly. It's probably one of the most regionally significant projects the city will ever see. We're going to eliminate, 55 million gallons of effluent going into Reynolds Channel.
Right.
So I'm confident that we're going to work it out, especially after my meeting today. If you would have asked me the same question last week, I would have said absolutely not. It's not even an option. But after my meeting today, I think it's possible.
It's just the way it's worded. It's to a licensed facility. Right now, they're bringing...
Right now, it's New Jersey.
New Jersey.
That's pretty much the only, from what I'm hearing, it's the only deal in town.
Right, but if Bay Park says it's okay, they theoretically could say, well, we'll bring it to Bay Park, but you're still paying the same amount.
That's correct.
And
Tully has been working and taking our dewatered sludge from that facility probably for a better part of 20 years. I have a good rapport with them. My gut tells me that wouldn't happen, but it's possible.
Yeah. All right.
I understand. I understand. I get it.
Mr. Bendo?
In addition to getting help from Legislative Floyd, is there value in us reaching out to some of our state-level representatives to work on the DEC?
There's always a value in that. I'm involved at a certain level. I find that that's always helpful. Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you. Any questions from the public? Ms. Hession?
Eileen Hession. First of all, I'd like to say that that's probably why New Jersey is called the Garden State. Items 3, 4, and 5 are pretty much all connected with sludge, so I just want to make a comment. First of all, Karen, I agree with you when you said it was kind of a warning to be proactive, because on item 3, it says somebody said we should forego replacing that digester cap or whatever it was, so maybe we shouldn't have put it off. And then in also, we're working with 3 different companies, and I know that they went out to bid and that's what you have to do, but it does seem, I don't know, weird to do that. In item 4, it says the 6-month contract is $624,000 and that the last sentence there says, hauling will continue on a temporary basis until a permanent solution is derived. So that's $100,000 a month to haul, right? So I'm wondering, who's working on getting a permanent solution, and when is it going to be done?
Yeah, that's part of the corrective action plan that I was discussing that's required to be submitted to the Department of Environmental Conservation by the end of the month. CDM Smith has been working for us, but again, we are engaging them as part of this change order, and those are the things we're going to discuss. It's very difficult right now. Until we have the tank cover removed, it's actually filled to the top with
Thank you.
stuff and cleaned. That we will have better answers probably in a month or 2 months from now. It pains me to say it, just like I'm sure it pains you as well.
Any other questions from the public on this item? Okay.
Item 5 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract for emergency removal and disposal of the secondary digester cover, removal and disposal of sludge, and cleaning of the tank at the city's wastewater treatment plant.
Yeah, in this case, we put this bid out as an emergency. So when we do that, we actually, in this case, we basically distribute the bid to a select group. In this case, it was 6 contractors off the top of my head. I think it was SpectraServe, RJ Industries, Philip Ross Industries, Thomas Novelli Contracting. We're trying to get a good group. There's not a lot of people who do this type of work. So we did submit it to, I think, 6. I think I missed 2, but my memory is escaping me. So in this case, the low bidder, there was 2 bidders. The low bidder was Thomas Novelli Contracting at $1,049,000, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, $1,049,000. And the second bidder was RJ Industries, and their price was, I think, $1,089,000. I didn't bring that information with me. Thomas Novelli Contracting has done a lot of work for the city of Long Beach. They're a reputable contractor. I've worked with them, and I recommend awarding it to them.
Any questions from the council?
I just want to comment, Joe, on the Thomas Novelli company. They did our block. They were the most professional company I've ever seen work in the city. So I feel
I'm
very
glad. Okay, that's good to hear.
confident with them. I mean,
That's good to hear.
everything was perfect. Thank you.
That's good to hear.
Any questions from the public on this item? No questions.
Item 6 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement for engineering services in conjunction with the Resilient Connectivity for Park Avenue Project Phase 1 and 2.
Yes, I'm glad to talk about something other than sludge or undigested sludge. Yeah, this is a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter an agreement with NV5 for design, construction, administration, inspection services of the Resilient Connectivity for Park Avenue Phase 1 and 2. NV5 was the firm that was here earlier that gave the presentation for the transit-oriented development project. The proposals were due in this office, in my office, I should say, on January 14th, 2022. We got 10 proposals. I think that's a record for this project. Proposals range from $375,109 to $911,600. We had a 5-member committee, which we pretty much do as standard to evaluate each proposal. In this case, NV5 was the actual, they were the highest rated and the lowest cost.
Wow.
Which is the no-brainer in my world. So it was pretty clear that, they should get it. The $375,000, the breakdown is $258,629 for design, $27,040 for construction administration, and $89,440 for inspection. The work includes infrastructure improvements on Park Avenue, starting at Long Beach Road and heading west. The proposed work includes new curbs, sidewalks, asphalt overlay, pedestrian, vehicle safety improvements, streetscaping, subsurface lighting cable replacement. This is funded by the Department of State grant. The grant is for $2,550,000. The city's match is half of that, which is $1,275,000. We currently have, I think, $600,000 available in the capital budget. The balance is going to be in the capital budget that's coming forward in 2 weeks. So we have the city's share for the project. So therefore, I recommend awarding the project to NV5. And again, we work with them. They designed Edwards Boulevard, south of Park, and they're doing the transit-oriented development, and I recommend them for this project as well.
Okay. Any questions from the council?
I do. John, you may have, I saw you actually had a question about this in the grid that we had put together, but I wonder, Joe, if you could explain the cash match from the city component and what that means.
Right. So the grant is from the New York State Department of State. When you get the grant, in this case, it was $2,550,000. So the city is required to fund 50% of that value. So we're required to fund $1,275,000. So we have to put that money. We have to fund that money. So what we do is we put that money in the capital budget. To date, there is actually, I think, I don't have it in front of me, I believe it's $600,000 is actually authorized and borrowed in the capital budget. We put forward for the 2023 budget the balance, which, based on my recollection, is $675,000. So we're putting the balance of the city share in the 2023 capital budget. So when you add the 600 plus the 675, that's $1,275,000, which is the 50% match.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bendo?
So I guess this would be probably a process question. So we have, of the 1.275 million, we have 600 now.
That's been borrowed. That's been borrowed.
675 that's going to be in the next capital plan.
Correct.
So what we're doing is voting for engineering services for a project that's not fully funded yet. So my question is, are we putting the cart before the horse? Should we be voting for this after the capital plan is approved?
I mean, we have the 600,000, which is the funding for the design. And the problem with this grant, I think we're under strict time constraints to get this thing designed and built. I think I don't know if Patty's here. She would probably know better. Nope, she's not in the room.
No,
I'm going to say September 2023. It's got to be completed, from my recollection.
I think that's correct.
So there was an urgency to get this approved, but it's a good point. It's a
Yeah, I
valid
mean,
point.
what my
I
concern
understand what you're
is,
saying. Yeah,
it's predicated on the fact that the capital plan will pass.
that's a valid point.
And we haven't seen the capital plan yet.
Correct.
So,
By the way,
what happens if the capital plan
it's in
doesn't
draft
pass
form
for
and it's
some
finished,
reason?
and you probably will have it tomorrow, just so you know. But it's a valid point.
You can move to table, right?
Yeah. Can we move to table it?
Sure, we would need a motion.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to, we also don't want to screw up any grants either.
Right.
So I guess.
And this is just for the design portion.
This is for the design, construction, administration, inspection. It's 375, 109.
No, like I said, my only concern is we're committing ourselves to this engineering work for a project that we don't necessarily, we have 3/4 of the funds.
Yeah, I mean, is this? I agree. I mean, I think I can't speak for the council.
We have the grant plus
Yeah.
half of our 50% match.
You're 100% right.
Joe, is the planning advisory board involved in any part of this process, and if so, when?
They haven't been involved to date. Right now, the only involvement has been we have our 5-member committee that has evaluated proposals, but there's a whole bunch of steps in this grant that have to be followed with meetings and public meetings, and that will be
part of it.
Part of it.
Okay.
I have a question for you. Would it be a huge impact if we tabled it and then put it on the next agenda?
I'm fine with it. I don't think 2 weeks is going to hurt anybody. I mean, it's a valid point. I'm fine.
Do I have a motion to table?
Motion.
Do I have
Second.
a second, okay.
That's fine.
We'll vote on the motion.
Motion to table item number 6. Councilmember Postoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember Bendo.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President McGinnis.
Yes.
Item's been tabled. Item 7 is a resolution authorizing publication for hearing of a local law amending Subpart C of related act related to the charter of the City of Long Beach regarding a local law to override the tax levy limit established in General Municipal Law, Section 3C. This item is for publication only. A hearing will be held May 17th at 7 p.m. Item 8 is a resolution establishing a standard workday for elected members of the City Council of the City of Long Beach for the purposes of determining and reporting days worked to the New York State and local employees' retirement system. Yep, okay. This is basically a housekeeping item. Anytime an elected official is a member of the New York State retirement system, they require us to pass such an item just to determine from their accounting standpoint how many days a month that they give credit into the retirement system for. It's the figures here are determined by a formula determined by the Office of the State Controller.
Okay. And any questions from the council on those items?
It's proof Councilman Lester isn't loafing.
Any questions from the public? Okay.
Item 9 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a two-word correction regarding the formal agreement and stipulation of settlement between the City of Long Beach Commissioner of Buildings and Property Conservation Scott Kemmons and the City of Long Beach Zoning Board of Appeals Sinclair Haberman and Bel Air Buildings LLC.
Chuck?
This was, is this on? Yeah. This was an agreement, rather long agreement. It was looked at by a tremendous amount of eyes, and still somehow, it's actually the plaintiff's counsel had put it together. Nonetheless, all parties agree that it was supposed to be worded as it's being suggested now.
Okay. Any questions from the council? Any questions from the public? Mr. Bendo, I'm sorry.
I just had a question. Is this what it's after this? Will all the parties then sign the documents?
Well, we can't move their hand for them, but that is the idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is the last, hopefully, step.
I sure hope so.
And I'm sorry, any questions from the public on this item? Okay.
Item 10 is a resolution fixing and providing for the 2022 season of the Ocean Beach Park.
That's self-explanatory. It's just outlining the season.
Memorial Day to Labor Day.
Okay. Any questions from the council or the public? Okay.
Item 11 is an ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances of the City of Long Beach regarding Ocean Beach Park.
Okay. Any questions from the council on this item?
Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Lester?
Tons of them. I've asked a lot of questions about this. I've asked a lot of questions about the cost of the beach. And I think the public probably has a bunch of questions. This meeting was continued, was tabled, and the hearing.
The hearing was closed at the last meeting.
Look at the proceedings. The proceedings clearly say it was tabled.
I was under advice of Corporation Counsel. I was advised that the meeting was closed. There was discussion to table the item, but there was no motion. Therefore, the hearing is closed
I'm sorry,
on advice
Dave,
of counsel.
Do you have the proceedings from last hearing?
Yes, I think the Corporation Counsel's office reviewed the meeting, and it was in their professional opinion, and they advised this council as a body that the hearing was closed. They acknowledged to all of us in an email that we all received that there was discussion to table the item, but there was no motions to actually proceed to table. Therefore, the hearing is closed.
There was no motion to close it either.
You don't make a motion to close the hearing.
But when there was a motion, when there was a consent to table it, okay? Dave, do you have the
There was,
proceedings?
They listened to the tape, to the recording. They said that it was closed.
I think there's a procedural difference of opinion here,
So you're
and
not going to let the public speak?
the public hearing occurred last time, And again, our professional corporation counsel advised this body that procedures were followed where we held the public hearing. The public hearing was closed. There was discussion of a table, to table the item by a minority number of the council. There was no motion passed, therefore the hearing is closed. I understand that there is a difference of opinion on this item, but unfortunately at this time I see no other choice but to follow the advice of our corporation counsel, who said that the hearing was closed.
So what we put out to the public, saying that the hearing was tabled, was inaccurate?
Tina, would you like to comment?
Yeah, Roy, from my understanding, and when I followed back up with Dave after we received, the email exchange, was because you and I discussed we wanted it tabled, but what happened was there was no motion made, so it just...
There was a consensus that we'll just table it. We weren't going to close it.
The ordinance was tabled.
Ordinance is it.
The what?
The ordinance was tabled. Voting on the ordinance was tabled. That was the motion. That was what was made.
I'm sorry, Dave, I can't hear you.
The ordinance itself, the item itself was tabled.
Until this meeting.
Till
voting on the ordinance.
Yes. The item, the ordinance itself was tabled.
So the public will still have an opportunity to talk before we vote,
They will? Okay.
right?
All right.
So they can still, they
Okay.
told me that they can still.
All right.
Yeah.
Council President says, ask us, do we have questions? And then she opens it up to the public.
Okay.
Mr. Lester, you said you had more questions?
Yeah, well, I have the questions that I've been asking all along, and I still haven't gotten answers. I still don't understand how the beach park is costing us $5.1 million, and I don't understand why it's so expensive. I don't understand why the boardwalk, the money for the concessions is not counted into the beach fees. I don't understand why all the costs of the beach during the year and off hours is only counted so that the people who use the beach during the hours pay for everything. I don't understand any of that, and I've asked that numerous times, and I don't seem to be able to get an answer on that.
City Manager Gaydon, would you like to respond?
I think, go ahead.
Yeah.
I think the questions that you ask and the way that we've done the calculations, we've showed the calculations several different ways. I think it's just a matter of the way we have been doing it and the way you think it should be done or you would like to see it is not within this particular budget. It has been shown several different ways.
Yeah,
Councilmember Bendo, I mean, we have been including several items within what is considered to be the beach. You asked a question of us of how many people uses the boardwalk just uses the boardwalk. We have no way of telling that unless you start charging people to walk on the boardwalk or some way that they have to go through to count to figure out how many people actually use the boardwalk. So the way that the calculations have been done are more transparent than they have been done in previous years. However, if we're taking the revenue from that area where we have concessions, if you're saying, well, maybe we should look at having the concessions and including that as far as revenue, then that means that we also have to look at the additional expenses.
I've asked for a breakdown of those expenses, and I do not have it. And you say
Well,
you look at it, I'm sorry, Donna, please. You say that you've given it to me several different ways. You have given it to me, you say, well, we spend this much money total, okay? And we spend this much money total. And we spend this much money total. That's not different ways. You haven't broken it down. I still don't understand. We're talking about 3 miles of beach, 100 yards of sand, and it's costing us $3.1 million to operate it. Now, I'm sure that there's a breakdown available, but I have asked for it for weeks now, and I am not getting it. I do not understand why we have to raise the price, 70% over 2 years for the residents I do not understand why it is so expensive. I have asked that, and giving it to me, giving me the same number, and saying, you know, we've given it to you different ways without any type of breakdown whatsoever,
Ina, would
does
you
not
like to
do
come
me
up?
any good.
Come on up, Ina.
Well, Ina's come, if I
Sure,
understand.
Mr. Bendo.
If I understand correctly from your email, you were proposing that you thought some of the beach expenses should be covered from the taxes, from the operating budget.
It should.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
That's what you were proposing. If we went down that path, we still have to cover the expenses. So whether it's as a fee for a beach pass, your way would probably then still require us to bump up the tax increase, because now we're moving expenses over into the operating budget, which has to be covered by taxes.
But they are operating expenses, John.
Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe.
Okay.
But what I'm saying now is that now what happens is the residents, this is the way I'm looking at it. I see your point. I do see your point. What I'm saying is the way I'm looking at it now is we have the residents of Long Beach are effectively subsidizing the non-residents that come down here and use our beach and boardwalk facilities.
How do you do that? If somebody's using it during the winter, if somebody's using the boardwalk, okay, they might be a resident here, and they're not subsidizing anybody by their taxes. They are using the property.
You're right,
They are using
but they
the
are
beach.
subsidizing the non-residents that use it, because now we're putting it in their taxes rather than in the fees of the users, and a lot of those users, at least for the beach, are non-residents.
Right, but you're not allocating it. You're not allocating it for the people that use it during the winter. Some people never go down to the beach during the summer. They're too busy, or some people just use the boardwalk, okay? And you're
Right.
saying that only the families and, you know, the people who go onto the beach during those 8 hours, during those 82 days a year, should pay for all of that.
Well, as
With
Ina,
the
as Ina
non-residents.
explained in one of her emails, that's what the government accounting principles say we have to do. We have to cover those expenses through user fees. That's
Yeah.
the government accounting rules.
I
So-
have a question. You
Yes.
just said that for the people that use the beach during the winter,
Yes.
we don't charge them. So if,
No, which makes sense.
Okay.
You do charge them because that should be coming out of their tax money. But I also asked, I have a problem with why it is so expensive. And I keep asking that question, and I don't get an answer. I have a problem with why we don't use the money that we're getting from the concessions. And you tell me, well, if we use that money, then we're taking it out of
The
you know,
general
the general
fund.
fund.
Yes.
But it's beach money. It's in the beach park. We're renting out parts of the beach park to these people.
So this is, I'd like to reframe the discussion here, right? So we have, Mr. Lister, you have your opinion of how the beach revenue, Ocean Beach Park revenue and expenses should be just depicted. You've asked questions of the staff. The staff has answered your questions. Unfortunately, from my perspective, being on many of those emails, unfortunately, it's my perspective that you do not find the answers acceptable or conducive to your objectives. So a staff is answering the questions. But what's happening here is that you have a council that all want to do what is best for the residents. And all of us have very obviously different opinions on how to do that. That doesn't make any of us right or wrong. You have spirited debate. You have 5 people each with one vote. And as far as I can tell, I ascribe to our controller's depiction of the Ocean Beach Park revenue. My colleagues, I'm not sure how they feel, but in general, the majority seem to subscribe to the controller's professional opinion on how we should depict revenues and expenses, which also happens to be in dovetail with how the New York State Office of Controllers suggests that we depict the Ocean Beach Park P&L. So for me, that's pretty good. You know, if the State Controller's Office says it's good, it's good. Mr. Lester, you bring up tremendously valuable points. A lot of them are right and have challenged each one of us in how to think about this. And the discussion is obviously not done. And each year, this is an iterative process. We've had, I think, 4 beach revenue meetings since last fall. Ask Joe Brand. Deck after deck, conversation after conversation, where we've really been trying to understand this entire process. But again, this is a process, it's a debate, and sometimes we are not going to like the answers, but no one's right or wrong, and everybody wants to do what's in the best interests of the residents, and sometimes we're going to have to agree to disagree.
So, just as an interesting data point, because Councilman Lester got me thinking, you know, so I asked the comptroller that if we were to forego the fee increase and had to make up the difference as a tax increase, how much would that tax increase be? The $30 increase in the family pass, for example, that would then translate, if we didn't do that, into an $87 tax increase.
For every household?
For every household in the city.
Every single household.
That's because, again, whether it comes out of the left pocket or the right pocket, the expenses have to be paid. So whether it's covered through user fees, which is the beach passes, or through taxes, either way, the bills have to be paid. The reason it's less with beach passes is because, again, non-residents buy a lot of beach passes. So that dilutes the increase that we have to do on the residents. So could we do it as a tax increase instead? I guess, sure. Would you rather pay $87 or $30? Mm-hmm. That's what it really comes down to. Some of it is how you show it on your books, but that's what it comes down to. And again, I've used this word in several of the previous meetings recently, to put everything in perspective, even with this increase. And believe me, this is not something, nobody up here wants to do this. We buy beach passes too. So we're raising the fees on ourselves too. But for a family of 4, this is 35 cents a day. Not a 35 cents a day increase, 35 cents a day per person that has a beach pass. 35 cents. You can't even play a video game for 35 cents anymore. There's nothing you could do for entertainment for 35 cents. You could go down to the beach for 10 hours for 35 cents.
These are agonizing decisions, and that's why we're up here. I also talked to Assistant Superintendent of Operations of the Long Beach School District about this issue, and about the fact that the increase could affect the family passes. And he volunteered and said I could say publicly that he would work with the PTAs if there were any families that would not be able to afford this increase. So basically, if we have to pass an increase, this community, we know, will bond together to make sure whoever needs a pass and can't afford it will somehow, in some way, get a pass. Ms. Trustin, do you have any comments on this item?
Not at this time, thank you.
Ms. Posterly?
Not at this time.
Mr. Lester?
Yes. John, first of all, the idea that the entire beach, the residents, the family resident fee, would cost $87 per household.
No, I wasn't referring, what I'm saying is all the cumulative increases, all the increases.
All I talked about were the residents.
Right.
And you know that, and I also said I have no problem with the increasing the non-residents, and we came to the conclusion that the idea that we were being told that you have to keep it within, 100% increase,
I know.
100% was not correct. And the fact that we have not increased the non-residents' daily pass, which is our largest number of passes, it just seems to me is a slap in the face to the residents. But my thing that I keep going on is we talk about the spending the money, but we never address the costs. And I have asked about the costs, and yes, I'm being told, well, the costs are the costs. It's like my mother saying, because I said so. I do not have a breakdown of the costs. I do not understand why the costs are as much as they are. I've been told, well, we do this, we do that, we do this, we do that, but there's no breakdown. And I was told that it would take hundreds of hours and a lot of money to figure out the actual costs. And you know what? I'm sorry, I can't go into something and listen to, well, it's going to cost this much, and that's just what it costs. I'd like to see why it costs that much. And that's just where I'm coming from.
Ina, would you like to come up? So yes, you have asked what it costs. What we have told you several times when you say you don't get the answer, we don't break down the cost that way. When you ask how many times the bathrooms are cleaned, what we told you was that we gave you an average on how many times the bathrooms are cleaned in the beginning of the year or during the season and non-season. Several of the items that you have asked for, we have said that that is not how they're broken down in our system. And the reason you were told that it would cost a lot of money is that, one, we don't have an accountant that can sit there and take the time to go through each particular item and allocate it properly. So what we said, when we say allocate it properly, and Ina can go into this, is that what we do is we take the average costs and that the items that were listed, that Ina has listed and said, this is what it takes to run the beach park. However, we don't include everybody's salaries that it includes to run the beach park. And so you have continued to say that you want to see exactly how much it costs. And so we said we will do that, which means that now we will allocate everything that goes to the beach park. You want to take over, Ina, and talk about the true allocation?
Okay, sure. So first of all, I want to touch upon this very granular level of detail that the information was requested for. And you were specifically asking for how much we spend in dollars on toilet repairs.
No, I never asked about cleaning the bathrooms. I never asked about toilet repairs. I'm asking $3.1 million to maintain the beach. How is that broken down?
I'm sorry, this was the question asked of me in your email from 2 days ago. You asked specifically how much we spend on cleaning, how much we spend on repairs, how much we spend on other beach maintenance activity. In order to give you an accurate answer, and I'm not in the business of giving, rough estimates, we would have to have job tickets for everything that employees in that department do. So every job would be coded, repair of the toilet or the bathroom on whatever street that is, and entered this way into the system. So, and then we could run a report on that and say, well, that's how much we spend on repairs, that's how much we spend on cleaning, that's how much we spend on other items. That kind of analysis is not accurate analysis. We can estimate probably, but how good would those estimates be if we never were required to keep that level of detail? So it would be a guesstimate. But that put aside, I want to just talk a little bit about the big picture, right? So we're talking what's the real cost of the Ocean Beach Park. You can look at it from the perspective of let's compare direct revenues to direct expenses. And that's what I did in December, that's what I presented again in March, just allocating those items that are very specifically, that we could say lifeguards, right? That's beach park nothing else. Beach park operations for all the ticket sellers and ticket takers. That's also beach park. Specialists who work on the beach. I had numerous conversations with our police commissioner, and we arrived at the number that represents what the majority of those part-time specialists, they're hired just for the beach for the summer. Now, if we are to do a full comprehensive analysis of how much beach costs, probably me, myself, doing all this, going over it for many, many hours every week, the city spent a lot of money in just my time. But if you saw that my presentation for the budget, the reason area there called general government services, majority of those departments in that category, they operate for the benefit of the other departments. So basically, Beach Park wouldn't be able to exist on its own if it wouldn't be for the Corporation Council, if it wouldn't be for IT, if it wouldn't be for my department that reconcile bank accounts that are specific to the beach park.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just hard
Down?
to hear you.
Yeah, down. Sorry. That are specific to the beach park. Purchasing department, probably civil service department that processes all the employment applications. So you would take the expense of all these departments, and then you would develop a base on how to allocate it to all those departments that are revenue producing, just like where you would apply the user fee concept. That expense I did not include in my analysis because it was really done to show the direct expenses versus direct revenues. Mm-hmm. In addition to that, city pays debt service on borrowings that we made for the projects that are specifically on the beach. We borrowed millions of dollars for the lifeguard station, right? We borrowed millions of dollars for the renovation of the bathrooms. Every year we pay between principal and interest another $500,000 of that. Mm-hmm. So if we were to, and concessions, yeah, you can say probably that it's, all in all, it's $131,000 that we get from all concession income, $150,000 for the whole year. So let's allocate whatever 3 out of 12 of $150,000, but let's also allocate then $500,000 for debt service, all the overhead costs that we haven't allocated yet, and the beach happens to be much more expensive than $5 million. So if we want to say that it's not so, I guess maybe it's a difference of opinion, but I have done very, very involved analysis over many, many weeks now. And if you would do comprehensive comparison of the revenues versus expenses, direct and indirect, beach is not breaking even. And in order to bring it closer to break even, we need to increase the prices of the beach passes.
Thank you. I just want to comment how the conversation of the council has elevated a lot over the past few years. So I'd like to give the public and the council some credit for that. We were actually having engaged, substantive conversations. That said, this issue, we have a resolution in front of us, yet we have an issue where we have to get some consensus on. So I'd like to propose that we form a working group, a subcommittee of the council. What? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. So basically, we have a resolution in front of us tonight that we have to vote on. Aside from that, we obviously have some discussion that we can still have. I'd love to do a case study on this, if anybody's heard of the case study method, where you really take a problem and then you try to get to the root causes and then figure and make a proposal. And I think that this is something that maybe this is a good assignment for this council as a subcommittee to work on. so that future councils don't have to go, so we have a really good foundation of what the issues are and what the levers are, and then let future councils decide similar situations, because we want future councils to benefit from all of our learning here. And then we can get some assumptions down straight, and then Ina can study the fact that these assumptions that we make for the Ocean Beach Park is one segment of the entire fund. But they have ramifications when we do other analyses of other parts of the budget. So that's something that Ina and Donna have to debate the pros and cons on and then present back to us. So again, in the spirit of consensus and the fact that everyone's opinion is important, I'd like to see if there's anybody that would be willing to work with me over the next year on a subcommittee on this topic.
Well, as a council member, I think that's a very good idea, and that way we can start working on things for next year to put a better process in place.
Would you join me?
I will join you. Yes.
Thank you. Roy, will you join a subcommittee on the topic?
Sure.
Thank you very much. Did you have any final thoughts, Mr. Lester?
I just, I just do want to note that, what Ina's saying is actually the beach is probably a $7 or $8 million enterprise, Ina? About $6.5 million. So, to think that, we're losing that much money, I think we're doing something wrong. I really think we're doing something wrong. However, since I can't get the breakdown, I have no idea what we're doing wrong. And I do want to note that when I did ask about the cost, I was told, and I'll give the quote, it's the best estimate of what it's costing, the best estimate. So, you know what, I'm not comfortable looking at something without any data to back it, but, what it is what it is.
This is a great opportunity for us to iron all this out.
And that's what a budget is. It's a best estimate of the revenues and expenses.
I'm hoping the budget has data to back it up.
Well,
I'm hoping, John.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah, again, this is a learning process. It's an iterative process. We all have to respect each other, and we're going to get to better solutions for the taxpayers.
I just want to thank Ina. What we'll do is all of the questions that Councilmember Lester has asked about the beach park, and as well as the council, we will put them in the grid so that the public can see. And you can see our responses to those questions. I think it's important for what you have done. And it is very important that the public understands that it's not that we're saying we don't have the answers because we don't want to give the answers. That's not how our accounting is done. And it will cost a lot of money to go back to break those numbers down versus repairs and things like that. And it's something that we talked about moving forward. So again, I want to thank Comptroller Resnick for all the hard work that she has done thus far.
I second that. There's been an enormous amount of work done by the staff, and to the level that it has not been before. So I do thank all the staff that have worked so hard.
Do we have any other comments from the council on this item? Any comments from the questions from the public? Mr. Brand? As a Commissioner Brand, I'm sorry.
I'd like to thank Ina as well. Just before voting on tonight's item, I'd like the council to consider striking or eliminating the Twilight Pass. At the last meeting, you asked, I replied I didn't know. In the subsequent weeks that we've done a little bit of homework on whether or not this can actually work or not. My staff members and I both kind of feel that it might be a little bit of a rush to try and put something into it this close to the season. I had one lengthy conversation with Donna about it, whereby we thought that the electronic digital pass might be the answer to the problem with this thing, making it available solely through the virtual USC Direct. But unfortunately, I don't know that they're going to be able to do that nor was it part of the original scope of their RFP.
Ah.
There's a number of internal operation difficulties. Most of them revolve around reconciliation and accounting, closing out one set of sales books at 4 p.m., which is a tough time of day for us, batching out credit card machines up on the boardwalk. I mean, there's a host of reasons. The fact that we don't have a physical pass ordered for us to sell, having cashiers now carrying 2 sets of passes, some of the more intricate ideas of people going to business for themselves and manipulating pass sales and selling one for one price and one for the other. I think it would just be something that would create a whole lot more work, and at the end of the day, I think, which is probably something a little bit more of a opinion or a philosophical guess, I don't know how much more revenue it's going to generate. Another part to that equation was, and John, you were passionate about the whole swimmer safety issue as well. I'm more than willing to get together with you or the council as a whole to discuss some of this stuff. But at the very least, striking it tonight, we've got another council meeting before we start to sell daily passes, so that there is an opportunity for us to kind of collaborate, but to vote on it tonight and put it in place without me being fully comfortable that we could pull it off, I don't think it's a good idea.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any questions from the council or motions?
Stand by.
Any motions from the council?
I'd like to make a motion then to amend this and take the Twilight Daily Pass. Sorry. Just going over procedure to see if I'm allowed to do this.
Yep.
I'd like to make a motion then to remove the Twilight Daily Passes from
That's
the
section
resolution.
B/D. I second the motion.
Do you need me to read it, David?
No, that's okay. Okay. Motion to remove the Twilight Pass. Councilmember Postoli.
No.
Councilmember Lester.
No.
Councilmember Bendo.
No.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President McGinnis.
Yes.
Motion fails.
Okay, so we went through discussion from the council. We had a motion. I'd like to open for discussion, comments from the public on this item. Ms. Flattery? O'Leary, Ms. O'Leary. On the beach pass, item number 11.
Good evening, Kathleen O'Leary, Long Beach. First of all, I felt that the motion was tabled the last time. I had an idea after Commissioner Brand spoke, and he mentioned that the Long Island Railroad Beach Getaway, the people are paying $12 for a beach pass, whereas residents are paying $15 for
No,
a
residents
beach
pay
pass.
12.
Residents are paying 12?
Residents pay 12.
Oh, okay.
For a daily pass.
Okay, that, I'm mistaken. But, I think that could be raised. I mean, they're paying $24 for a round trip on the railroad plus the beach. Seniors go round trip on the railroad for $20. And they are not residents. And I miss the fact that we were not raising non-resident passes last time. I thought that we were. I've spoken at least twice on that, and the fact that we're cheaper than any other beach on this island here. So I think, if you're going to raise I think you should raise everyone, okay?
We are. And the only one we did not raise, we raised everyone, including non-residents, except the daily pass for non-residents, because the sentiment is it's already expensive enough that any more they'll go somewhere else.
See, I don't subscribe to the fear theory, in general, and in this in particular. I moved here from Brooklyn. People in the city, their choices are Coney Island or Orchard Beach. They're packed, there's no waves, and it's edgy, okay? We have something here that is unique. And if, you can't live your life by fear, and you can't run the beach by fear.
Right. But when was the last time you were down at Beach 100th Street in the Rockaways?
Never.
It's really nice.
It
And
is
it's
really nice now.
Oh, all right. Well, I don't know what it used to be, but
And-
it's. I don't think Lido is afraid to charge. I guess they're Town of Hempstead.
Town of Hempstead.
Yeah, if you're a non-resident, you pay $50 for a car.
Right.
load
Are
to
they
get in.
afraid of losing people? Why should we be afraid?
No, I don't think they don't want non-residents, quite
I
frankly.
know. And East Atlantic Beach.
That's
you
why
can't
people
even-
go to Jones Beach, which is close for them, and pay $10 for a carload.
Right, but again, it's edgy and it's packed, and it's unfair to compare a town beach to a state park. The state has much more funding than we do.
Oh, yeah.
So, I would again say I would like to see the non-resident daily pass raised. I would like to see the Long Island Railroad passes raised, and I really don't know much about the procedure, but I could swear it was tabled and nobody voted on it last time.
It was tabled, so we did not vote on it at the last meeting.
Mhm.
We did not want to have a hearing and vote at the same meeting. So we tabled voting on the resolution so we could vote on it at this meeting. So
Okay.
if anybody gave us any input during the public hearing that might
Yeah, last
impact
week.
anything at the, right.
Okay.
We could take that into account.
So then maybe next year you could think about what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And I also, like, I'm not for canceling the Twilight Pass. There's a million reasons why you can't do it. I mean, you could do it so easily, just hand someone a piece of paper, from the trailer, take the $6 and let them go. I mean, why are there, we don't have to make it into a production where
Yeah.
we need an IT person to track how many people come in after 6. I mean, we have a lot of drownings here every year, mainly before the season, but that's the twilight hour, and it's good for working families.
And to your point, you just heard President McGinnis formed a little subcommittee with Dre here, because Councilman Lester's, is proposing a different way to do the accounting for the beach, and they'll look at that. And
We'll call you.
Okay.
Kathleen, I just want to say that there are communities where you buy passes at the stores, and they make maybe 50 cents on the pass. And, they get little plastic things, and we could do that, and people walk down to the beach, and they put a hole in the little plastic thing so they can't use it again. And, and they make a little check mark that they had somebody come in, because the person still has to have it when they're on the beach.
That's right.
And, it's because I looked into it, and it's, you look at some of these California towns, and
In Jersey.
Yeah.
The
we
Jersey
used to have that here, didn't we?
We
Some of the
used to
businesses
be
used to
able
sell beach passes.
to buy at the deli.
Yeah,
and
I
a few
think King's
stores.
Pharmacy used to
Yeah.
sell them in the West End, and
Panini and Bikini.
Yeah, but if it's an afternoon thing, it's really easy. You give them a certain amount, you have numbers on it, and they know they're responsible if they don't sell it the same way they do the lotto tickets right now. So
that would be bringing in the
I think what John's idea was a really good idea.
Me too.
And so,
Me too.
Great conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, well,
Any more questions from the public on this item? Okay, thank you.
Item 12 is a resolution authorizing a budget amendment to the general fund budget.
Ina?
Ms. Resnick? You're not done yet.
Almost.
Carbona.
Item number 12.
So item number 12 has to do with the grant that the city had received from Mr. Carbona. The grant is restricted. It's only for the operations of the lifeguards on the beach or for expenses that are associated with those operations. That's how City Council accepted this grant. The restriction can only be lifted by the council, and we now have $150,000 in a restricted fund balance. So there are more expenses that need to go towards operations of the beach this year. I believe it's towards the chairs, and we're asking for $25,000 to be moved from the restriction and to have operating revenues and corresponding expenses increased by $25,000 the budget, so our lifeguards can have chairs for the summer.
Any questions from the council on this item?
Yeah.
Mr. Bendo?
Ina, I think there's a bit of a problem with the math. If you take the 50,000 for the cameras, the 56,235.27 for the ATVs and the sign, and then you add in the new beach chairs, that comes out to 170,767.27. So we really only need 20,767.27. I know you don't have a calculator in front of you.
No, and I don't have the system in front of me also to check how much money we have left there, but based on what we need to spend on the chairs, we need to move $25,000 into the line.
Well, we approved 60,000 for the chairs, 24 chairs at 2,500 each, so they were 60. So if you add 60, 50, 56,235.27 and 45.32, that comes out to 170,767.27.
But those chairs were never ordered, right?
So they weren't ordered. We approved the contract.
I believe. Joe, were the chairs ordered in lifeguard chairs?
April 9th, we voted on it.
Yeah, so what did you say, John? So I got the money, added the 50,000, the 56,235.27, and the 4,532?
And then 60,000 for the chairs.
Oh, okay.
So that line, okay, I know the answer. That line item had a regional budget as well, right? It was not all funded by the Mr. Carbona's donation. So that's why, I guess, again, I don't have a calculator in front of me. And so do you come to the amount more than 125,000?
So you came up with 177.67.27?
Yep, that's what I got.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then what were you saying? We would need 25,000?
Well, you don't need 25. What you really need is 20,767.27. I mean, it's a minor difference,
So
but I'm just saying.
we could do that. You can do that in the sweep, right?
I'm just saying the math seems to be off somewhere.
Well, it's not exact, right?
The math is off.
So minus 150, and then you get the 20.
Unless there's another expense
So that should be the-
Is there
missing from
tax
this.
or something that's added that's not in here?
I think you probably put an estimate in with any other small charges.
Can we do the 20,767.27 this time, and then if there is a difference, we do it the next meeting?
Yeah, we could do that too.
4,232.73 the next meeting.
Okay.
If we need it.
If we
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you have a motion,
Yeah.
John, to change
Wait,
the amount?
Does that sound reasonable? Yeah, uh-oh, we're getting the stink guy.
Is there any way we can move to another item when I check this one out?
We're at the end here.
Not really, I have two items
Yeah.
of publication and one for motion. That's it.
What's the last one? Oh, it's yeah.
They're both publications.
Yeah, they're publication
So
items.
can it just wait the balance to the next meeting?
Which is like
The 4,000.
This way the resolution matches exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you need the other 4,200 or whatever it is, we could do that at the next meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It can wait until next meeting.
The whole thing?
The whole thing?
The whole thing
or
can
just
wait
the
until
42?
next meeting because I have, you gave me an authorization to move money, right? So to cover this, I will move money and then you will authorize
Okay.
this.
So you just
the
want
17th.
So we'll just wait and do this whole thing at the next meeting?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, do you have a motion
No?
to table?
Wait, are you
Wait,
gonna?
wait. Donna's shaking her head.
Let's move the 20,000 that we need so that when
that the
Mr.
things can be
Carbona
done.
comes,
Right.
we can say,
Yeah.
this is what we used your money for.
Okay.
There's an event next Saturday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I will make a motion to amend the increased estimated revenues from 25,000 to 20,767 and 27 cents, as well as the appropriations from 25,000 to $20,767.27.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Thank you.
We usually round up, so do we want
Yeah, no.
768.
You want to make it
to?
768, that's fine.
Yes.
And Tina seconded the motion.
Just to be consistent. Okay, I'm
John,
sorry.
you have to change the resolved part too.
He did, I think, right?
That's what he was talking about, increase the
bottom.
appropriation.
At the
increase-
bottom, it says how much is left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have to change that.
You're right. So we got to add, okay.
Stand by.
Hold on. We got to add 4,232.
233. Oh,
I
232,
round.
232,
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. 129.
So it's 129,232.
129, 232, 73.
No,
No,
round it
no,
out.
Okay.
no
so
sense.
129, 233.
No,
30,
two.
32. I
Because
rounded.
you rounded up on the other one. we
Oh,
round
yeah,
down
yeah,
on
yeah,
this
yeah,
one.
yeah, yeah. Okay.
Okay, and
So changing the last resolved from 125,000 to 129,232. Do I have that correct?
yes.
Correct.
Okay. And I have a
And Tina
I have-
seconded?
I have a second, okay. Voting on the amendment, Councilmember Postlewaite,
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember Bendo.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President McGinnis.
Yes.
Okay, continue.
Okay, do we have any questions from the council on this item?
No.
Any questions from the public?
Wait, someone's coming.
I'm sorry?
Someone's coming.
I know. Hi, Linda.
I just want to make sure I'm understanding something. Linda Giles, Long Beach. When it says that, I'm sorry. When it says that additional funding in the amount of $25,000 for the purchase of the lifeguard stands, where does that $25,000 come from?
The grant.
From the grant.
Why does it say additional funds? What-
Because the.
You mean from the gift?
From the
It's
gift.
From the
yes.
gift.
From the gift.
We're moving the gift, the money from the gift, the restricted amount, to where we can actually use it.
So the restricted amount?
Yes,
Okay.
the money, when he gave it to us, we had to restrict it because it's
Right.
only for the beach.
So it's not costing us anything?
No,
All these
we're
things-
just moving money from one pocket to.
Okay, because it was a
No,
little
he
confusing.
donated the money to, with
For the
the
lifeguard.
caveat it had to be spent on
Right.
beach and lifeguard equipment and things like
I
that.
And this
understood
is the
that.
mechanism.
Just the wording was a little confusing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions on this item? Okay, no questions.
Second, okay. Item 13 is a resolution authorizing publication for hearing of an ordinance authorizing financing for the costs of the construction and reconstruction of improvements to the city's Long Beach Water Pollution Control Plant and South Shore Reclamation Facility, stating the estimated total cost thereof is $123,095,799, estimating said amount therefore authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $123,095,799 bonds of said city to finance said appropriation, and further authorizing any amounts received from the United States of America and/or the state of New York to be expended towards the cost of such project, or redemption of any notes and bonds issued therefore, or to be budgeted as an offset to the taxes for payment of the principal and interest on said bonds and any notes issued in anticipation thereof. This item is for publication only. A hearing will be held May 17th at 7 p.m. Item 14 is a resolution authorizing publication for hearing of an ordinance authorizing financing for the cost of a settled claim against the city in the matter of Sinclair Haberman LLC versus the Zoning Board of Appeals of the City of Long Beach, the City of Long Beach, and Scott A. Kemmons as Commissioner of the Department of Buildings of the city, stating the estimated total cost thereof of $75 million, appropriating said amount therefore, and authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $75 million bonds of said city to finance said appropriation. This item is for publication only. A hearing will be held May 17th at 7 p.m. And finally, item 15 is approval of minutes from prior meetings, April 5th and April 8th. Do I have a motion to approve?
I move.
Second? Sorry, who was it? Oh, okay. Voting, Councilmember Postoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember Bendo.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President McGinnis.
Yes.
Okay, on to the voting portion. Excuse me. Item 2 is a bond ordinance authorizing financing of the construction and reconstruction of improvements to the city's wastewater treatment plant, appropriating $2 million for such purpose, and authorizing the issuance of up to $2 million bonds to finance said appropriation. Who introduce and move the adoption of this item as amended?
I will.
Second?
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Postoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember Bendo.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President McGinnis.
Yes.
Item 3 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to amend the existing agreement with CDM Smith for support services related to the emergency secondary digester cover removal, sludge removal, and tank cleaning at the water pollution control plant, as well as sludge hauling services. Would you just move the adoption of this item?
I will.
Second?
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Postoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember Bendo.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President McGinnis.
Yes.
Item 4 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract for the hauling and disposal of undigested sludge from the city's wastewater treatment plant. Would you just move the adoption of this item?
I will.
Second?
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Postoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember Bendo.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President McGinnis.
Yes.
Item 5 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter a contract for emergency removal and disposal of the secondary digester cover, removal and disposal of sludge, and cleaning of the tank at the city's wastewater treatment plant. Won't you just move the adoption of this item?
I will.
Second?
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Postoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember Bendo.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President McGinnis.
Yes.
Item 6 has been tabled. Item 7 is a resolution authorizing publication for hearing of a local law amending subpart C of related acts related to the charter of the City of Long Beach regarding a local law to override the tax levy limit established in General Municipal Law, Section 3C. Would you just move the adoption of this item?
I will.
Second.
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Postoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember Bendo.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President McGinnis.
Yes.
Item 8 is a resolution establishing a standard workday for elected members of the City Council of the City of Long Beach for the purposes of determining and reporting days worked to the New York State and local employees retirement system. Would you just move the adoption of this item?
I will.
Second.
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Postoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember Bendo.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President McGinnis.
Yes.
Excuse me. Item 9 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a two-word correction regarding the formal agreement and stipulation of settlement between the City of Long Beach Commissioner of Buildings and Property Conservation Scott Kemmons and the City of Long Beach Zoning Board of Appeals Sinclair Haberman and Bel Air Buildings LLC. Would you just move the adoption of this item?
I will.
Second?
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Postoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Abstain.
Councilmember Bendo.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President McGinnis.
Yes.
Okay. Item 10 is a resolution.
Wait, Dave.
Hold on, Dave. Councilman Lester, was there anything that you needed from my office that you didn't receive in order to vote yes or no?
No.
Can you repeat that, Chuck? The audience didn't hear you.
Councilman Lester, is there anything that you needed from my office in order to enable you to vote yes or no on this issue?
No.
One moment, Dave, sorry. Yeah.
No, no, no.
The,
Okay.
okay.
That, to me, that just, he's voting for himself.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's voting for himself. So we're going to be consistent when we talk about. I'm saying that if we're going to be consistent on when we talk about open meetings and voting, we need to check that because he voted for himself. And typically, you cannot vote for yourself. And I just want to make sure the vote is correct.
I know this has come up in the past, and what I've been told is because a lot of times this item will come up with all the members' names in it, and
Okay.
they would have to
My
take action
question
on that.
is back to item number 8, that Councilmember Lester voted, but Councilmember Lester's name is in the resolution. I want to make sure that that is proper, that he can vote for something, on something that is actually for him.
But Donna, I could easily abstain. I mean, it's...
That's what I was asking.
Yeah.
Should you have abstained on that?
but
That's all
do you-
I'm asking.
Do you want to redo it and I'll abstain so that
No, I
there's
just
not
want to
an
make sure
issue?
it's correct.
Yeah.
You know.
Since it was establishing hours, I didn't think there
No.
was...
Yeah,
you
I
know.
just wanted to make sure it's correct.
Yeah.
I-
Either way, it's
Yeah.
fine with me.
I have I'm sorry to bring this up, but for the Corporation Counsel's office and for the City Clerk's office, I'm not sure if we follow Robert's Rules of Order in terms of our voting. We don't?
Robert's Rules is designed for large legislative bodies.
Yeah.
The recommendation from NICOM is you can use bits and pieces of it to put into your own rules, but our rules are derived from the city charter, not from Robert's
Right.
Rules.
So in the city charter, it says you either need to vote yay or nay. Those were the only two options when I searched the charter today. So therefore, can the corporation's office, in conjunction with the city clerk's office, do some research regarding the plausibility of being able to abstain and whether or not you need to, you are required to respond with one of 6 reasons that are generally stated in Robert's Rules of Order for an abstention. Can you please research that?
Of course we will.
Thank you.
Lost track where we were. Oh, item 10.
I think we're up to number 10.
Number 10, okay. Item 10 is a resolution fixing and providing for the 2022 season of the Ocean Beach Park. Won't you just move the adoption of this item?
I will.
Second?
Another date for all right.
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Postoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember Bendo.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President McGinnis.
Yes.
Item 11 is an ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances of the City of Long Beach regarding Ocean Beach Park. Would you just move the adoption of this item?
I will.
Second?
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Postoli.
No.
Councilmember Lester.
No.
Councilmember Bendo.
I'm just going to say something for a second. In an ideal world, we'd have a magic fairy that would come, wave its wand, and a flying unicorn would come down with a pot of gold and pay the bills so we didn't have to do this. But that's not the world we live in, unfortunately. The reason we went in 2 years from being the most fiscally distressed municipality in the state to coming off that list. And the reason we went from a $5.5 million deficit in our bank account to a $3.2 million surplus is because the people up here made a commitment to fix this city's finances. And that means making difficult decisions, maybe even unpopular ones. But that is what it needs to be done to fix this city. How do you think we got, you heard the auditors tonight say how much better we're doing. We're doing it because we're making tough decisions. This is one of those tough decisions that we have to make. So none of us like it, but this is the reality we're in of having to make this city work. So I vote yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President McGinnis.
Yes.
Item 12 is a resolution authorizing budget amendment to the general fund budget. Would you just move the adoption of this item as amended?
I will.
Second? Anyone?
Wait, I'm sorry, I was just turning the page. We're up,
Mr. Lester.
Mr. Lester? Okay, thank you. Voting, Councilmember Postoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember Bendo.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President McGinnis.
Yes.
Item 13 is a resolution authorizing publication for hearing of an ordinance authorizing financing for the costs of the construction and reconstruction of improvements to the city's Long Beach Water Pollution Control Plant and South Shore Reclamation Facility, stating estimated total cost therefore is $123,095,799, appropriating said amount therefore and authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $123,095,799 bonds of said city to finance said appropriation, and further authorizing any amounts received from the United States of America and or the state of New York to be expended towards the cost of such project or redemption of any notes and bonds issued therefore, or to be budgeted as an offset to the taxes for payments of the principal and interest of said bonds and any notes issued in anticipation thereof. Who make them? Who
I
introduced
say
the
you
adoption of
read
this
it
item?
again, Dave.
Could you repeat that, please?
Twice is enough.
I will.
Second,
I will.
voting, Councilmember Postoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember Bendo.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President McGinnis.
I want to thank Legislator Ford for shepherding through the county. This is, as Commissioner Fabrizio said, this is a huge project of many generations. It will be a landmark for us in terms of getting this accomplished. And with that, I vote yes.
Okay, item 14, finally, is a resolution authorizing publication for hearing of an ordinance authorizing financing for the costs of a settled claim against the city in the matter of Sinclair Haberman LLC versus the Zoning Board of Appeals of the City of Long Beach, the City of Long Beach, and Scott A. Kemmons as Commissioner of the Department of Buildings of the city. The estimated total cost thereof is $75 million, appropriating said amount therefore, and authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $75 million bonds of said city to finance said appropriation. Introduce and move the adoption of this item.
I will.
Second,
I will.
voting, Councilmember Postoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember Bendo.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President McGinnis.
Yes.
City Manager's monthly personnel report has been filed by the city clerk, who will make a motion to close the meeting.
I will.
Second,
I will.
voting, Councilmember Postoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember Bendo.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President McGinnis.
Yes.
All right.
It's getting that time.
I thought we'd make 10 o'clock, but
Maybe not good and welfare. Good and welfare.
I know.
Oh.
We're past 10.
Wait, stand by. I'm lining out of my chair.
Oh, my goodness. Kathleen O'Leary. Thank you. Kathy Williams.
No. We got her.
They had you checked out already.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I can't use that. It's probably sanitizer.
It's okay.
I can't use that.
Uh-huh.
So we can hear you.
I'll try and project my voice as much as I possibly can.
We will repeat back what Ms. Williams says. She can't use the microphone.
Thank you for the comprehensive plan that you showed in visual aids. I enjoy that, and I appreciate the effort that you have gone to do the visual aids so that everybody could see. Thank you very much. Okay. It's a wonderful thing to have a vision. You cannot move forward without a vision. And for you to have a beautiful vision of a comprehensive plan for our city of Long Beach, it is a wonderful thing. I've been here since the early 60s, and I've seen a few of the comprehensive plans. One was in the 50s, where they had a comprehensive plan that didn't work out well. The next one was the comprehensive plan of urban renewal, but what it ended up being was urban removal for poor homeowners and poor renters here in the North Park area. And I'm wondering if that's going to reoccur again, where people will be displaced. There was a program put out by the federal government which said urban renewal, but it ended up being urban removal of poor homeowners and renters. And we still have these people in the city of Long Beach. Is that going to be, perpetuated again?
No, that's not the intention at all. And matter of fact, there will be public meetings to talk about the comprehensive plan. And so each area will be represented, or each area will have a chance to be at the public meetings. And what we're looking at economic development within the city. And so did you all hear what she's asked? Yes. Okay. So, yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Michael Axelson. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. My name is Michael Asselson. I've already sent each of you an email. My name is Michael Axelson. I've already sent each of you an email regarding the incident I had outside of the Stop and Shop regarding a handicap parking permit parking space. I failed to display my parking permit, and I was given a ticket, which was dismissed. I also found my car booted. I've seen a lot of cars booted in town lately. I thought for sure it was for scofflaws or unregistered vehicles. It appears that the ordinance is so broad that you can boot for anything. It's a first-time offense, and I think the boot fee should be returned. And I urge the council to take a close examination of the city's booting policies and practices for possible constitution violation. Since ordinance was passed through April 29th, my FOIA request shows that 249 vehicles have been booted in the town in the short times, where I was dealing with my incident in front of me at the Stop and Shop, another woman had her boot removed by the officer who took mine off, but he had just put it on hers before he was there to take mine off. He used his discretion in removing that, but there was no chance of getting his boot fee removed, even though the ticket was dismissed. That's all. Thank you.
Commissioner Walsh, I know you sent a lengthy response and copied Legislator Ford and Senator Kaminsky on that response.
Yes, I did.
Yes, please. It was a little long.
Yes,
No. You may have to, there you go.
There we go. Hi. Yes, I did send a response to the letter that you sent. This is not, I understand that it's a personal issue to you, and I do sympathize with the manner in which things have happened. But as I said in the letter, when you came out, the boot is already affixed, the summons was already issued. The other motorist that you're talking about that was next to you, and yours was entered into our computer system. The other motorist came out, and the ability to actually stop the process was there. Nothing was in our system. Once this thing enters our system, it's done. The reason that the booting ordinance is written the way it is, the administrative fees, we didn't really want to pass on to the taxpayers, the general taxpayers, the fees and associated with the program. So the people who get the boots put on their car pay a boot removal fee and the administrative fee to cover the cost of the actual program. And there's a considerable amount of cost when you're running a program like that. The legislative body, the council, when they passed this ordinance, it was given a lot of thought as to how that was written. And it took away all the discretion of the police commissioner and the police department to waive the administrative fees, because there was a history in the past here of people who had fees and were given favoritism. I didn't want to be subject to anything like that, and nor did the council want to give me the authority to wantonly be able to say, oh, I like you, I don't like you, you know somebody, you don't know somebody. So that authority was taken away. We do have the authority to waive a fee when there's a legal mistake made. In other words, the computer system says you're a scofflaw, and you're technically not a scofflaw. So if there's an error in the actual system, we can waive the fee before it's paid. There's nothing in it to give a refund, but we can waive it if the person comes down and says, I don't have these issues that you're saying that we have. The particular issue with your, and I don't mean to make you stand, so if you want to, okay. The particular issue with yours also was, it's a handicap spot. And in the handicap spots, we've chosen to boot the car instead of impound the car, for just the reason that you have your issue. If you do forget to put your tag up, which is apparently what happened with you, because you went to the court that day, showed your tag, got the summons actually dismissed. At that point in time, the court can say you're not responsible for the fine. We've chosen not to impound the cars, which was our practice before this. You got a ticket that we impounded the car. We actually took the car, and it was removed from the city of Long Beach. So you would not have been able to get your car back. And you would have still paid well over $250 to get your car back, because you're going to pay the tow company, plus an administrative fee for the city. Actually, it would have been probably a little bit more money, expense for you. Right around the same. So a lot of thought and discussion was put into this. I understand that you're upset, and I sympathize with that. I'm not sympathetic with it. But the fact is that you didn't hang the tag as required. You have a permit. You have to hang the tag on.
I realize that.
I know. And I'm not trying to be argumentative. As I explained in the letter to you, and I sent it to the council, I sent it to Legislative Ford, I also sent it to Senator Kaminsky's office. I sympathize with you, but I do not want the authority to waive these fees for anybody in this city, because I'm trying to change that culture.
Somebody should have it.
Well, if you
Some
had,
discretion somewhere. There is everywhere else.
The discretion was that you didn't have to pay the fine for you not hanging your tag, because you actually got the tag. That's within,
that's within the council, not the council, I'm sorry, the court's ability to do that. But the fact still remains, the boot and the time and effort to go to your car, put the boot on, and the reason and the additional expense was actually paid, and was actually gone through. So that's the reason why those administrative fees aren't taken.
Those administrative fees should be taken out of taxpayers. That's not
So
taxpayers.
as it's explained to you, the reason why we didn't want to pass it on to someone who does, because they're not the reason why we have a booting program. So I understand that you're upset. I do sympathize with you. I hope you don't feel like I'm being callous, but there was a lot of deliberation in this, and those are the facts. I stand behind the ticket, and I stand behind the fee. I do.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Sludge, I do agree with you. I know that when we passed this booting ordinance, we had in mind scofflaws and different, people that were blatantly violating the law. I don't think if it was ever presented to us that somebody who parks in a handicapped spot where their fine already is quite extensive and with no history, no prior history, would be booted. I know I would have never voted for something like that. Booting is a drastic remedy, and Commissioner Walsh is right. It could be towed and stuff like that. But, common sense seems to say that, you use some sort of discretion. If somebody's never done it before, and you can always find out if somebody has a history of tickets, something like that, it seems to me that we could change the ordinance so that we can limit what booting is used for. Right now, as the ordinance reads, it can be moved, for anything. If somebody runs over 5 minutes on a parking meter, which we don't have, but if we had parking meters and it runs over by 5 minutes, you could boot. I don't think that was ever our intention. But, it's not Commissioner Walsh that did anything wrong here. I would have to say it's the council. We probably could look at this again, and probably should.
So, if the council chooses to change the ordinance, whatever ordinance it is, we will enforce it to the way it's written, obviously. That's what we do. But the reason why the ordinance was written that we can boot certain things is, here's a perfect example. We needed the flexibility that if we have a sunset party that comes down here, and we have an influx of people that are breaking other laws, we would have the authority in the police department to utilize the booting programs to boot the cars of people who are wantonly parking wherever they want to hold an illegal party on our beach, and to break our other ordinances and laws where it's much more impractical for us to be able to enforce it. We can't necessarily go on the beach and deal with 4,000 or 5,000 kids that when you take 10 or 12 or 15 cops, you risk their stuff. So I do agree with you that, and we would not boot a car 5 minutes over parking. That's not the intention of this. However, I've had many handicapped people in my family. My father was one of them who needed the spots. And when somebody parks, they're very quick. When someone parks at a handicapped spot, generally speaking illegally, their intention is to run in quickly and run out. Normally, that's what happens. There's one way we know whether or not that car's allowed to be there, and that's the tag. It's unfortunate that this gentleman didn't have his tag up on his car. I agree with that. However, that's the only way I can identify the car.
No question, but there's an extensive fine for that.
It's not a fine.
Not a fine.
It's not a fine. The fine was actually dismissed by the...
but there was a fine. In other words, if someone parks in a handicapped spot and they get a ticket, you're telling me, Liz, that there's no fine attached to that ticket?
There was a
Commissioner.
fine. It was
There's a
dismissed.
$250 fine.
Right, there's a 250, so the
That was
statute says
dismissed.
that there's a $250 fine for parking in a handicap.
That's correct.
So if someone runs in and they don't, and they don't have a sticker or whatever, and they
Oh, okay.
get a ticket, they get a $250 fine.
Correct. If
And
we see the car and we give that a ticket, they're also going to get booted. They're also going to get booted. That's what we
A
do.
boot fee of $370, and then to top it off, you get another $6 charge for using the kiosk to pay it.
That's not ours, that's the credit card company.
No, that's not him.
I understand that.
Yeah,
It's like-
listen, as far as I'm concerned, I think it has to be amended at this point so that we do have some sort of rationale
Should be
here.
something about it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Jake Gusler.
She's left.
Eileen Hessian. Janet Cohen. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending tonight's meeting.
Thank you.
We'll see you on the 10th for a working session and the 17th for the next council meeting.
Have a good night. Thank you.